Hi, I'm Annabella. My parents paid every cent of my brother's college and gave me nothing but a smile and silence. They said I was the strong one, the independent one. But at my graduation, when they finally heard my name, and the room stood up to applaud me, their faces went pale. Want to know what made them crack? It wasn't the applause. It was everything I survived without them. We sat at the dinner table like any other night, Dad at the head, Mom by the stove, and Joran across from me, grinning like he already knew what was coming. I had just gotten home from my shift at the diner. My hand still smelled like fryer oil, but I smiled, hopeful. Dad cleared his throat and said, "We've got something to celebrate. Our boy's headed to Western State." Mom clapped. "Full support, of course. We'll cover tuition, housing, everything. He shouldn't have to stress while getting his degree." I looked up from my plate. "What about me? I got into the same school. I start the same semester." Mom didn't even blink. "You're the responsible one, Annabella. You've always figured things out. You'll manage." No one said anything else. Joran kept eating like it didn't concern him. Dad nodded like he'd just made a practical decision, nothing personal. I stared at the meatloaf on my plate, my appetite gone. That was it. No debate, no question, no shame. After dinner, Joran pulled out his phone to text his friends. "Beach week is happening," he said with a smirk. "Guess who's going all out?" He was talking about a trip with Dad's credit card. Meanwhile, I was sitting on the couch with my laptop, typing "how to apply for federal student loans" into Google. The house smelled like lemon-scented cleaner and fried onions, but I couldn't smell anything over the slow burn of being invisible. I didn't cry. That would have felt like asking for something. Instead, I shut my laptop, walked to my room, and pulled out a legal pad. I started listing every scholarship deadline for the next month. They didn't choose him because he needed it more. They chose him because they assumed I didn't, because I never complained, never failed, never needed rescuing. But that night, I made myself a promise. If they thought I'd survive without help, then I'd do more than survive. I'd rise so far above their expectations that one day, they'd have no choice but to look up. 2 semesters passed before I made it back home. The bus ride from campus was 6 hours of stiff seats and stale air, but I had time to think. Too much, really. I carried a duffel bag, a wrapped frame I'd carved myself in the wood shop, and a pit in my stomach that I couldn't shake. When I walked through the front door, Mom barely looked up from her soap opera. "Put your stuff in the laundry room. Joran's room's still full of gifts from his fundraiser." Fundraiser? That was news. But I said nothing. I just did as told. Joran pulled up an hour later in a new fleece pullover and leather boots. Dad greeted him like royalty. "There's my man. I made your favorite, 3-bean chili with extra spice." I watched them from the hallway, still holding my coat. Not one person had asked how school was going. Not one word about the job I was working to cover tuition. It was like I was just passing through, like a guest who'd overstayed. That night, I handed Mom the frame I made, our last name engraved across the top, delicate vines twisting around the border. She held it up like it was something from a yard sale. "That's sweet, honey." No hug. No, "wow, this is beautiful." Just, "that's sweet." Then she placed it face down on the counter to reach for another beer. Christmas morning, I already knew what was coming, but I smiled anyway. We gathered around the tree. Dad handed Joran a small box with a bow. Joran opened it and whistled. "Whoa, a Tacoma key? You serious?" "College boy deserves a real truck," Dad said proudly. "Can't have you driving junk around campus." Mom handed me a flat package. Inside, a discount store thermos with a clearance tag still on it. "So you can stay warm during those late shifts at the library," she said, like that explained everything. I felt something press behind my chest, like my heart was holding its breath. They didn't even notice the silence. Later that evening, I overheard Mom on the phone with Aunt Debbie. "Joran's top 10% in his program. We're so proud of him. His professors say he's leadership material." I leaned against the wall listening. Joran had bombed his last econ midterm. I'd helped him rewrite 2 of his essays. Meanwhile, I had a near-perfect GPA, multiple certificates pinned on my dorm corkboard. She didn't mention any of it, not one syllable, but I wasn't surprised. Just done. After the holidays, I returned to campus with more than just textbooks in my bag. I carried silence. No arguments, no drama, just that numb kind of quiet you get when you finally stop expecting anything. That night in my dorm, while organizing files on my laptop, a memory blindsided me like an old bruise someone pressed too hard. I was 14. Joran and I were playing baseball outside Dad's hardware store. He always had a wild swing. One hit too high, too hard, straight through the store's front window. The crash echoed like thunder. Dad came running out, red-faced, gripping the belt loop on his jeans. I stepped forward before Joran could say a word. "It was me," I lied. "I aimed wrong." He believed me instantly. No question, no hesitation. He grounded me for a month and pulled $100 out of my summer job savings to teach me accountability. Later that night, Joran slipped me a Snickers bar and whispered, "You're just better with them than I am." Like I should be proud. Like betrayal was a compliment. Even my punishment was a gift for him. 3 years later, I was working part-time at a craft store, saving for a second-hand laptop. Nothing fancy, just enough to run word and let me apply to colleges. Then, one afternoon, Mom came into my room holding a Post-it. "Joran's iPad got stolen. Finals are next week. You'll let him borrow yours, right?" She didn't ask. She expected. I handed it over, thinking they'd buy me another soon. They never did. That winter, I typed essays at the public library, riding the bus at 7 p.m., fingers numb in those plastic chairs under flickering lights. Meanwhile, Joran got into a business leadership program. Thanks to the laptop I never got back. People like to say that sacrifice is love. It's not. Not when it's demanded. Not when it's never returned. Looking back, I spent years thinking being useful would earn affection. That being the fixer, the helper, the yes girl would one day make them turn to me and say, "You're our pride." But love shouldn't feel like labor. And I wasn't their daughter. I was their tool. By spring semester, my body moved on muscle memory. Class, shift at the library, late bus, instant noodles, repeat. But my mind, it needed something to hold on to. That's when I saw the flyer on the bulletin board near the accounting lab. The Benjamin Ford National Grant, top 5 U.S. students in finance. A full ride, paid internship, national spotlight. I tore the paper down before anyone else could grab it. Back in my dorm, I mapped out every requirement on my whiteboard. Transcripts, recommendation letters, a 500-word personal essay. I wasn't intimidated. I was alive again. Every night after closing the library, I'd head to the 24-hour study lounge. I wrote with earbuds in, blocking out noise, channeling the years of overlooked effort into something they couldn't dismiss. The essay became my confession, but not the kind that begs. No, it was the kind that stands tall. That weekend, I took the draft home with me, just to get one person's blessing. I handed it to Mom while she stirred stew. She skimmed the first paragraph, her eyes flicking side to side like she was scanning a grocery receipt. Then she put it down and said, "It's dramatic. Maybe tone it down a bit. No one wants to read sob stories." My chest tightened. "It's not a sob story. It's the truth." She shrugged, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Well, if you say so." Right then, Joran came downstairs holding a brochure. "Hey, Mom, can you help me with this application for that summer program in Barcelona? There's a personal statement thing I don't get." She lit up like a Christmas tree. "Of course, baby, let's do it now before I forget." And just like that, my laptop was pushed aside for his spell check. A week later, back at school, I overheard my TA talking to another assistant. Joran Caraway's mom emailed Klein again. Some excuse about a family emergency. Wants another retake. I froze mid-step. I'd missed a quiz last semester when I had strep throat. I never got a makeup. But she was out there fixing his failures like it was her part-time job. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rant. I just opened my laptop in the empty study lounge, attached the final draft of my essay, and named the file Ford_essay_annabelac.pdf. No backup plan, no fairy godmother, just me. A few weeks passed in quiet limbo. I didn't expect a reply, not really. I submitted that essay like I was writing into a void, hoping, but not clinging. Then came an email. Dr. Lionel Harris. Subject line. Impressive work, Annabella. I stared at the screen like it might vanish. He'd read my essay, And apparently, one of my professors had forwarded my paper on financial forecasting from last semester, without my knowledge. Dr. Harris had already submitted my name to the Ford Committee as an early standout. "You have a sharp analytical mind," he wrote. "Let's talk about a research assistantship." For the first time in a long while, I felt seen. Not pitied, not used, just seen. I accepted immediately. That weekend, Mom called. Her voice was syrup sweet. "Hi, sweetheart. Duran's got a paper due for his marketing class. Needs a quick pair of eyes. Can you help your brother out?" I held the phone in silence for a beat, then said calmly, "No, I can't. I've got deadlines of my own now." A long pause. "Annabella, don't be difficult." "I'm not. I'm just not available anymore." She sighed, clearly annoyed. "You used to be so helpful." I let the silence answer her. The next Sunday, we had family brunch. I came home for politeness' sake. Mom served scrambled eggs, beamed about Duran's trip to Barcelona, and passed around his Instagram photos like he'd just solved world hunger. Not a word about my new job. I didn't correct her. I didn't share. That would have felt like begging for acknowledgement, and I was done performing. Back at school, I filled out the last of my internship forms and added the research assistant title to my resume. Quiet victories, no confetti, no spotlight. That night, I opened the Ford Committee's confirmation email one more time. Finalist notifications, June 3rd. I didn't want their applause anymore. I just wanted them to watch. June came in slow and sticky, like a storm holding its breath. One morning, while scrolling through job alerts at the student center, I spotted it. Bold, centered, and unmistakable. "Congratulations, Annabella. You are one of 5 recipients of the Benjamin Ford National Scholarship." My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I just stared at the screen until the words blurred into fog. Then I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding, and whispered, "I did it." I forwarded the email to Dr. Harris, who wrote back within minutes, calling me a pillar of resilience. My classmates took me out that night. We toasted with fountain soda and cheap wings. For once, I laughed like it didn't cost anything. But I didn't tell my parents, not right away. A few days later, the scholarship committee sent a formal invitation for the award ceremony. "Bring your family," it read. "This moment belongs to them, too." I stared at that sentence longer than I should have. Then I dialed home. Mom picked up. "Annabella? Hi, I got the scholarship, the big one. The Benjamin Ford?" A pause. Then, "Oh, well, that's something. They're inviting parents to the ceremony. It's on June 3rd. It would mean a lot if... We'll see. It's a Friday, right? Might be tricky." "Okay, just think about it." She changed the subject to Aunt Laura's garden within 30 seconds. I hung up and looked at the framed copy of my unofficial transcript on the wall. Summa cum laude. It deserved to be more than decor. That weekend, I went home for dinner. Duran was going on about his failed dropshipping idea like it was a Fortune 500 pitch. Dad patted his back. "That's the entrepreneurial spirit, son." I mentioned I'd been asked to speak at the scholarship ceremony. Mom didn't miss a beat. "That's nice. But don't say anything that sounds like we didn't help you, all right?" I set my fork down. "I didn't say that." "Well, just be careful how you come across." "I've spent my whole life being careful. I'm not editing my story for your comfort." Duran went quiet. Dad kept chewing. And me? I finally stopped folding myself to fit their silence. That night, I drove back to campus with the windows cracked and the radio off. The air smelled like dust and June grass, and I let the silence press against me like armor. I wasn't mad. I wasn't even hurt. I was done. The ceremony was a week away. Ford Foundation had already confirmed my speech slot. They'd sent a press kit, a reserved seat chart, and a list of expected guests. Investors, alumni, faculty heads. It was the kind of crowd Duran and my parents would normally kill to be seen in, but I wasn't sure they'd come. Or worse, what they'd say if they did. The answer came sooner than expected. That Tuesday, I got a text from Talia, a girl from my old high school. "Your mom's been telling people you're getting this award because you have the gift of gab. She said one of your professors has a soft spot for you." I blinked at the screen. A soft spot? An hour later, I ran into a friend from the finance club in the hallway. "Hey, congrats," he said. Joran was telling people you're probably winning because you have connections, not just grades. Said someone up top likes you. My hands clenched around my notebook. My jaw tensed so tight I heard my molars click. It wasn't just silence anymore. It was sabotage. That night, I called home. Dad picked up. Hey, kiddo. Dad, are you and Mom telling people I got this scholarship because of favoritism? Long pause. Then, well, your mother just doesn't want folks thinking we didn't support you. She's rewriting reality to protect her ego. I earned this. Every inch. I know that, he mumbled, but it's complicated. No, it's not. It's cowardice dressed up as diplomacy. He didn't argue. I hung up. The next morning, I walked straight to the campus communications office and handed them my revised speaker's bio. I added every internship, every research hour, every job title I'd worked while Joran partied his way across Europe. I didn't want them to clap out of pity. I wanted them to understand exactly what I'd survived to stand at that podium. I woke up before the alarm, already dressed in my mind. The thrifted navy dress I'd steamed the night before hung on the closet door like it was guarding something sacred. I pulled my hair back into a clean bun. No makeup except for lip balm. I didn't need a new face today. I needed the one that had survived. There was no text from Mom, no voicemail, just silence. Joran posted a filtered selfie from the backyard that morning, holding a mug like it was an Oscar. Caption, boring family thing. Let's get it over with. I rolled my eyes and walked out the door. At the auditorium, the buzz was electric. Camera crews setting up, rows of names taped to velvet seats. I found mine in the front row, 2 seats reserved beside it. Dr. Harris spotted me near the stage stairs. He smiled. They came. I turned. Middle row, 5 seats in. There they were. Mom in her church dress, Dad in his too big blazer. Joran slouched between them like a kid forced to attend Sunday school. They didn't wave. I didn't nod. But the space between us had never been clearer. When they called my name, the auditorium dimmed and the spotlight found me. My heels tapped against the wood floor. Calm, sure. Annabella Caraway, the host announced. A self-funded scholar, 2 jobs, perfect record, recommended not by favor, but by merit. Applause thundered. Joran blinked like someone had switched channels mid-show. My mother just stared, lips parted, as if she didn't recognize the woman they were clapping for. I stepped up to the mic and let the silence hold. Not every student gets handed support. Some of us learn to grow in the dark. Some of us earn our light. Pause. Let it breathe. To those who never stopped believing in us, thank you. And to those who never did, we made it anyway. The room stood, except her. I walked off stage as the clapping built behind me. Dr. Harris leaned close and whispered, "They saw you now." In the reception hall, executives and recruiters circled. Joran approached, hands in his pockets. "Hey, that was something?" I nodded. "Thanks." Then turned to shake hands with a hiring manager from New York. I didn't look back. Not even once. That same night, while others gathered in hotel rooms or downtown bars to celebrate, I packed 1 duffel, 2 boxes, and the envelope with my job offer. No confetti, just paper and resolve. 2 weeks later, I stepped off a Greyhound in Queens with a Metro card and directions to my sublet. The building smelled like curry and old steam heat. The room was tiny, the window stuck halfway open, but it was mine. Nobody's hand had carved this path. I'd bled every inch into the sidewalk myself. Work was relentless. My first week at the firm, I got lost twice, cried once in a bathroom stall, and stayed late every day. But when my supervisor handed me a case file and said, "I trust your instincts," something inside me clicked into place. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was becoming. A week into the job, my phone lit up with a message from Mom. "Hope New York is treating you okay. Dad says congrats." No apology, no warmth, just words. I replied, "Thanks. Hope you're both well." Nothing more. The next day, Joran emailed me with his resume attached. "Any advice for interviewing? Heard you're good at this stuff." I skimmed it. Sloppy, inflated, full of jargon he didn't understand. I sent back 3 lines. Cut the buzzwords, know the company, be honest about what you don't know, no smiley faces, no call to catch up. They weren't villains. They were just incapable. and I was done being collateral in someone else's emotional confusion. The only message I responded to with tears came from Grandma Marla. "I watched the video online," she said over the phone. "I stood up when you walked across that stage. Baby, you were a star." I laughed. "You're the only one who clapped from the beginning." "I clapped because I saw you, sweetheart. They just never looked close enough." After the call, I stared at my laptop wallpaper. Me on stage, smile fierce, back straight. A woman no one gave permission to succeed. That night, I wrote in my journal, "I didn't win to make them regret. I won to remind myself I never needed their blessing to bloom." And that's what healing looks like. Not a reunion, not revenge, just freedom. I stopped waiting for them to clap. I started living like I didn't need the noise. Before we wrap up, let me leave you with this. Not as the girl who once sat alone in a cold guest room while her brother got a new truck, but as the woman who walked her own stage, in her own shoes, without waiting for permission. If there's anything my story taught me, it's this. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You need to believe in yourself loud enough to drown them out. Family can disappoint you. Love might not always look the way it should, but self-worth, that's yours to define. No one can give it to you, and no one can take it away. Maybe you're watching this and you felt invisible too. Maybe your success made others uncomfortable. Or maybe you're still in the middle of your own battle, trying to prove your worth in a world that's too busy clapping for someone else. Wherever you are in your journey, let this be your sign. You are not broken. You are becoming. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Has your family ever made you feel overlooked? Or did you have someone, like Grandma Marla, who always saw you, even when no one else did? Tell me in the comments. Drop a 1 if this story touched your heart. Let me know where you're watching from. Or hey, if this story didn't hit home for you, I want to know why. What are your experiences? And if you found even a spark of strength in this story, please subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next one. We've got more real voices, more brave stories, and maybe the next one will be yours. You made it to the end. That means something. Thanks for listening.
Hey sis, why didn't you come to Mom's funeral? What? I can't believe my own sister wouldn't even come to her mother's funeral. You're so cold-hearted. It's awful, just awful. That's not something a decent person would do. I was bewildered by the sudden phone call from my sister. Our mother had passed away 3 years ago, and we had already held a proper funeral. I had no idea what my sister was talking about. I'm married now, and my husband and I are both working. We've been blessed with children, and we make sure to give them extra love and attention so they don't feel lonely. My husband is incredibly supportive with both housework and childcare, and I'm proud of our ideal family. I have a strong desire to ensure my children never experience the same things I did. My parents divorced when I was in elementary school due to my mother's affair. My father discovered the affair because I told him. Though it's often believed that children will always side with their mother, that wasn't the case for me. My mother was far from the ideal maternal figure. I have no memories of being loved by her. I have one younger sister, but our mother only doted on her. It seemed that even spending time on housework was a waste to her, so all the chores were forced on me. My mother despised me for revealing her affair and hated me even more. She constantly berated me, leaving me with physical and emotional scars. When the divorce was finalized, she took my sister and left. Thanks to my father and grandparents, I maintained a relationship with my sister, seeing her regularly. But as I entered middle school, those meetings became less frequent. I thought it was due to adult issues, but it turned out my sister was avoiding me. After being turned down a few times, I asked if I had done something to upset her. My sister told me that our mother had said the family fell apart because of me. From their perspective, I was the traitor. My sister believed that if she continued seeing me, she would be the next to be abandoned. She couldn't bear to contact or meet me behind our mother's back anymore and wanted me to stop. I explained that our mother had betrayed us first by cheating on our father, causing our family to fall apart. My sister knew about the affair but held it against me for being the one who told our father. Even though she understood, she still saw me as the traitor since she had to live with our mother. She wouldn't listen, insisting it was my fault for not turning a blind eye. During all this, my father remarried, and I got a new stepmother. At first, it was awkward, but she tried her best to be an ideal mother figure. Seeing her efforts, I decided to cherish my new family. I stopped contacting my sister, and we eventually drifted apart. I had no lingering feelings for my biological mother, who only loved my sister. I went to college and secured a job. Just when I thought I could finally repay my father and stepmother, my father passed away in an accident. Despite our distance, I informed my sister that our father, who was still her father, had passed away. However, my sister did not offer any words of condolence. After saying, "Serves him right," she laughed scornfully. I thought she would still come to the funeral, but my biological mother and sister never showed up. However, when we discussed my father's inheritance later, they suddenly appeared. Everyone was taken aback by their flashy and inappropriate attire and heavy makeup, which made them barely recognizable. "At least tell us the date for deciding the inheritance. We had to check every day because we didn't know when it would start," my sister complained. From the end of the funeral until today, my mother had been watching nearby, hoping to participate in the inheritance discussions. I thought she should have just shown up at the funeral instead, since the inheritance discussion was scheduled as soon as possible after the funeral. "Because of what you said, my poor little daughter had to suffer. You're going to give us a fair amount, right?" my mother demanded. Even though they divorced and lived separately, the children still had the right to inherit. I had no intention of refusing that in the first place. My father's personal assets were not large enough to be distributed among the family. I can earn my own money by working, and my stepmother is still young enough to continue working. She plans to work for a while longer, so even if I gave my father's property to my biological mother, my stepmother wouldn't struggle financially. Besides, I didn't want any more disputes, so I gave up my claim to my father's inheritance. "What a stupid man," my mother sneered. "He made such a fuss about a simple affair and wanted a divorce." I agreed to the divorce because being with such a small-minded man made my own heart narrow too. Yeah, it wasn't our dad who dumped Mom. It was Mom who dumped our stingy dad. "Poor big sister for living with such a father," my sister added, ridiculing my deceased father. Laughing crudely, my sister joined in, disparaging my father as well. "It's pitiful that you were raised by a father who was dumped." Neither of them showed any empathy or understanding for the sadness and loss my father experienced after being betrayed. "You can say whatever you want about me, but please don't speak ill of our deceased father," I pleaded. "What? What's the traitor saying? You're the root of all evil," my mother shot back. "That's right, and what's with that plain look? You don't look like you're in your 20s. You look older than your mom. With that appearance, you probably don't have a boyfriend, right? If you can't attract a man, what's the point of being a woman? If you don't think so, then you're full of flaws as a woman," my sister mocked. After an intense argument, my mother and sister told me never to contact them again and stormed out. I couldn't feel anger or disappointment toward them, who wouldn't consider others' opinions and only insisted on their own. It was utter emptiness. In that moment, their existence was erased from my life. After they left, there was silence for a while, but someone coughed and snapped me back into reality. The inheritance was then divided solemnly. Years later, my stepmother inherited the house my father left, and I continued living there. I wasn't sure, but I believed she was thinking about me. Even though I was an adult, my stepmother tried to be a mother figure for me. Her support made me very happy, but then she became ill and was hospitalized. "I'm sorry I didn't ask you to live with me just so you could take care of me," she said. "I know, but even if we lived separately, I would have taken care of you if you were hospitalized, so don't worry," I replied. I visited the hospital to take care of my stepmother during breaks from work. I didn't want to have any regrets like I did when my father was ill. You could call it self-satisfaction. Her time was limited, so I wanted to spend as much of it with her as possible. One man supported me through all of this. Before my stepmother's illness was discovered, we had been discussing marriage, but right before we decided to get married, her illness was revealed. I asked to put the marriage on hold for a while, but my partner said it would be better to reassure my stepmother, and his presence became indispensable to me. At the right time, I introduced him to my stepmother. He told her, "I'm looking forward to living together with the three of us. He's a wonderful person. I have to make sure I see you in your wedding dress on behalf of your father too," she said, her greatest joy shining through. She lived longer than initially expected, But a few days after my wedding, she passed away, joining my father. My stepmother was wealthy and I inherited a large amount of money. 3 years later, with what my stepmother left behind, I was able to build a happy family. From the start of our marriage, my husband and I decided to continue working and live within our means, not relying on any inheritance. Today, as usual, I went to work and received a call from an unknown number on my personal cell phone. Assuming it was a sales call, I ignored it. However, the calls persisted, coming in every minute. Eventually, I answered at the end of the day and discovered it was my estranged sister. "Why didn't you come?" she demanded. "Come to what? What are you talking about?" I replied, confused. "How could you forget our mother's funeral?" she sobbed. "Our mother's funeral was 3 years ago," I said, bewildered. She paused before continuing angrily, "Oh, maybe your stepmother died too. I'm talking about our real mother. Calling someone you're not even related to mother is disgusting." I felt irritated but chose to overlook her attitude, recognizing that the loss of her mother must have been a tremendous shock to my sister. For me, my real mother was my stepmother, who had married a man with a child and became a mother to a middle school student overnight. I didn't fully grasp this until I had my own family. I think the period of nurturing a life within oneself is a time for a mother to develop self-awareness and commitment. Of course, I am aware that many people can build wonderful family relationships even without a blood connection, such as through adoption. However, becoming a mother to a middle schooler all of a sudden is certainly not an easy task, no matter how you look at it. When I consider my stepmother's efforts and anxieties, all I feel is gratitude. I am forever indebted to her, and she is the image of the mother I strive to be. Blood connections are trivial in reality. The so-called real mother my sister refers to never even looked at me. So when I hear the word mother, I think of my stepmother who raised me, not my birth mother. I genuinely believe she was talking about my stepmother. Finally understanding my sister's words, I replied indifferently, "Oh, I see." I could hear what sounded like her banging or stomping over the phone. What that indifferent attitude? The funeral is over. It's terrible not to attend your own relative's funeral. What a cold-blooded person, you must not have red blood in you. Although she made a valid point, my sister also didn't attend our relative's funeral. Moreover, our deceased father loved both my sister and me equally. I believe he was more affectionate than my mother. Not only did my birth mother and sister not attend my father's funeral, but they also took his inheritance and insulted and despised him. If you ask me, I think those two are the ones without red blood flowing in them. Indifferent. "Well, we're strangers, aren't we?" I said. "Ha! You interfered with the inheritance even though you didn't attend Dad's funeral, right? Weren't you the one who said never to contact you again? And I just found out about our mother's passing now, you know." After a brief silence, my sister uttered a small "ah." "I forgot I meant to inform you about the funeral." "Well, I'm glad you remembered. I'm going to renounce all the inheritance related to that mother, so you can do whatever you want with it," I said, hanging up the phone. However, my sister, perhaps lacking comprehension, contacted me again a few days later. "Help me, Katie. Seems her mother hinted at marriage to various men. Isn't that like marriage fraud? They're yelling at me to pay compensation if I don't want to be sued. I'm being yelled at a lot." "Well, just pay them." "If I could, I wouldn't be calling you." "Didn't you hear me say various men? It's not just one or two. Some of them seem pretty sketchy too." "That's tough, but remember you were the one who said never to contact you again. Furthermore, it should have been known that our mother was promiscuous with men since she cheated on our father while he was still alive. In fact, she didn't have just one affair. If it had been only one person, our father might have forgiven her, thinking it was just a momentary lapse of judgment. Only our father would know the truth. There might be a possibility that I couldn't accept my mother. You had multiple relationships as a mother. That's because my father tried to adopt my sister several times through a lawyer. But I was told that my sister didn't want to leave, so I gave up on that idea. My sister wanted to stay with our irresponsible mother, even though she saw her up close. Even if our mother had imprinted on her, my sister still wanted to be with her, twisting the memories we both shared. It's fair to say that not being able to leave even after becoming an adult is equally guilty. There's no room for sympathy here. And you were the one who called me a traitor all along. I don't need a sister who calls me a traitor. You were the one who declared us strangers first. I don't need you coming around now, acting all like family. It's a nuisance. Don't ever contact me again. We're strangers after all. I hung up the phone without checking my sister's reaction. I blocked her number and went back to the house where my family was waiting. Later, I received a call from my biological mother's relatives. I thought we were done, but they apologized for the rudeness my mother and sister had shown me, so I decided to hear them out. The relatives remembered how harshly my mom treated me and were shocked that she could shamelessly claim my father's inheritance after we had separated. They apologized profusely for allowing the visit during a time when my grief had not yet healed. But that's all in the past now. Next, they talked about my sister. Apparently, she's just as irresponsible with men as our mother. Ever since my sister came back, they had warned her numerous times that she would eventually suffer if she didn't change her ways. But instead of changing, my sister became just like our mother, and they could no longer control her. Mother got involved with bad men, and my sister was being forced into criminal activities. Feeling cornered, my sister was also dating multiple men at the same time, leading to several intense confrontations. Unable to handle it anymore, the relatives declared that they would cut off their relationship if their advice wasn't heeded. And then our mother died. As my sister is an adult, they decided to continue with cutting off their relationship. But right after our mother's funeral, another confrontation occurred. Since then, her whereabouts have been unknown. They advised me not to get involved with her anymore. I didn't plan on it anyway. However, I can't help but feel sorry for her, as there might be some room for sympathy regarding the criminal activities she was forced into. But there must have been a way for her to atone. If she didn't take that path, then I guess it's her own fault. That's what I decided to think. After hanging up the phone, I heard the sound of my husband and children laughing happily in another room. I want to protect this family, so I decided to live my life using my biological mother and sister as negative examples. My name is Carter King. I have elderly parents, but they are not my blood relatives. My real parents died in a car accident when I was very young. With no relatives to take me in, I was placed in a foster home and raised there until I was 5. Even though I felt lonely without a mother and father, I found joy in meal times with delicious food. One day, an elderly couple came to the facility. I vaguely remember them smiling happily as they watched me eat. They had such kind smiles. After a while, the couple, the Kings, decided to adopt me. I quickly opened up to them, calling them Grandpa and Grandma. They had a small garden where they grew vegetables and sold them at a local farmer's market. Though they didn't make much money, the leftovers from the market and the vegetables not good enough for sale ended up on our table every day. I loved Grandma's pickled cucumbers and potato soup. Be thankful for your food, Grandpa always said. There are many people struggling without food today. We must be thankful for every meal, Carter. I hope you grow up to be someone who can help those who are hungry and in pain. I nodded seriously, and he smiled gently. His teaching stayed firmly in my heart. We lived a simple life without luxury, but were raised with a lot of love and happiness. I helped with the farming while attending high school. I thought about getting a job after graduation to help with the family finances. But Grandpa said, "Don't worry about money. Do what you want to do." I think he understood that I wanted to do something that would help people in the future. But at that time, I lacked the knowledge and didn't know where to start. I wanted to go to college to learn about social work, economics, logistics, and more. For times like these, Grandpa said as he handed me a bank book. The account was in my name, Carter King. He had been saving for my education. I was moved to tears by his thoughtfulness. After enrolling in college, I studied hard. I felt happy but also guilty for causing trouble for my grandparents. I had never seen them indulge in any luxuries. They always put me first. I vowed to repay their kindness in a big way once I started working. Keeping that in mind, I devoted myself to my studies, and after graduating from college, I got a job at a food company called Inspiring Foods. This company not only manufactures and sells food products but also focuses on social welfare through food. Grandpa was the one who told me about it. A friend of his worked there, and he happened to hear about the job. "Maybe the job you want to do is here," Grandpa suggested. I was assigned to the sales department and tackled everything from copying documents to data entry and handling phone calls with all my might. I arrived at work earlier than anyone else and studied the material to learn about our products. I also accompanied skilled salespeople on their visits, wanting to learn the job quickly and become a full-fledged worker. However, there was one person who didn't think well of me, Eric, the head of the sales department. Eric was also a board member and held significant power within the company. There was a rumor that he didn't see any use in people who couldn't help him climb the career ladder and was especially tough on newcomers. True to the rumor, I was quickly targeted. Watching me ask a colleague to let me do anything, he seemed to think, what an overbearing and cheeky newcomer. One day, he suddenly came to my desk and ordered me to come up with a proposal for a new product. You seem like a hard worker, so you can do it in a day, right? Excuse me, that's a bit. Talking back as a newbie? I'm sorry. Unable to object, I gathered all the ideas I could think of and somehow put together a proposal, which I submitted to him. It was a concept for a stir-fry vegetable sauce inspired by Grandma's cooking. Eric glanced at it and scoffed, pushing the proposal back to me. Who would buy something like this? Our clients are looking for something more upscale. We don't need cheap stuff like this. Haven't you ever eaten any good food? I'm afraid I'm not very familiar with upscale stuff. Could you perhaps give me a few tips on how to improve? Use your own head to think. Well, I guess that's too much to ask from someone raised in a poor family. Yes, sir. This kind of thing happened almost every day. Honestly, going to work became a struggle, but I had a reason I absolutely couldn't quit. I had a dream of taking my grandparents to a fancy restaurant with my first paycheck. I was sure they'd never been to a fancy place like that. They'd hardly ever eaten out. I thought to raise me, it must have made many sacrifices. I wanted to give them a little luxury for once. I wanted to treat them to an amazingly delicious feast. They raised me like their own family with no blood relation, and I wanted to repay their kindness as soon as I could. A month after I had entered the company, I finally received my first paycheck. I was proud of earning money through my own work. One of my colleagues recommended a fancy restaurant he had used for entertaining clients. So I made a reservation for 3 and called my grandparents. They were surprised when I suggested going to such a luxurious place, thinking we were going to a family diner or something. Are we really going into such a fancy place? Grandma seemed a bit confused. I got my first paycheck. It's money I earned myself as a working adult. It's always been my dream to treat you both, I said. Tears welled up in her eyes. It's all thanks to Carter's thoughtfulness. Let's enjoy the feast without holding back, Grandpa said happily. Nervous about our first time in such a restaurant, we stepped in. Then, from a back room, I heard a familiar voice. As the door opened, Eric came out. Hi, good evening, I said, reflexively straightening my posture. Why are you here? He looked at me curiously. Just having dinner with my family, I replied timidly. This place is for entertaining important clients, not for common folks like you. He scrutinized us and continued. Coming to a restaurant in such cheap attire is out of place. Even if you eat high-end food, you won't appreciate its value. Why don't you go to some cheap diner around the corner? His words pierced my heart. It was one thing for me, but I had made my grandparents feel bad too. That was far from the filial piety I had hoped for. Filled with frustration and shock, I couldn't say anything back. Then Grandpa, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. The one who's out of place is you, he said in a tone I had never heard him use before. Who do you think you're talking to? Eric started angrily coming towards Grandpa, but when he got a good look at Grandpa's face, he exclaimed loudly, Mr. King. Then he quickly went pale and sat down on the spot. Bringing happiness to everyone through the power of food, Grandpa murmured. That was the corporate philosophy of inspiring foods. I've been meaning to talk to you about it, Carter. Are you ready to hear me out? He began to speak quietly. Our family has owned vast lands for generations, which allowed us to live without want. One day, over 30 years ago, the president of Inspiring Foods came to us wanting to buy our land. He wanted to build a factory for his company to expand his business. Upon further discussion, I learned that Inspiring Foods had been donating food to children in foster care. The president grew up in a poor family himself, often going hungry. He had a strong desire to provide delicious meals to as many children as possible. He was passionate about expanding his business to support more orphan children, families, and those in need. I was deeply moved by his feelings. My wife and I have always loved children, but were unable to have any of our own, so we decided to help his cause. We kept only the land necessary for our livelihood and gave the rest to him, agreeing with the philosophy of bringing happiness to everyone through the power of food. I became a shareholder in Inspiring Foods and made further investments. I vowed to use my money to help those in need. We kept in touch ever since, and one day I visited the foster care with him. That's where I met you, Carter. While other children were fussing over not liking carrots or wanting pizza, you were the only one enjoying your meal, saying delicious with your mouth full. It was so adorable. I wanted you to be part of our family, to share meals together, so we adopted you. You grew up to be a very kind-hearted young man capable of empathy. That's why I thought you could be of service at a company like Inspiring Foods. That's admirable, Eric said, standing up and extending his hand to Grandpa. I made a bit of a mistake earlier. Carter is an exceptionally talented individual, he said, forcing a smile and stepping forward. Grandpa coldly shook off his hand. It's too late. You will never understand the true value of a meal, the value of sharing a table with loved ones. Inspiring Foods is a company that saves people through the power of food. You have no right to call yourself a part of Inspiring Foods. It was the first time I saw Grandpa raise his voice. I will inform the president of everything at tomorrow's shareholders meeting. When you return to the office, don't expect to find your seat there. Eric trembled and ran off as if fleeing the scene. That day, the three of us enjoyed a delicious feast. As we ate, they told me many things I never knew before. I was also able to tell them how hard I've been working. Did I manage to repay you too a bit? Of course. You've grown up and are working hard as a respectable adult. That's enough repayment for us, Grandpa said with a happy look. Today's meal will be an unforgettable memory, Grandma added, truly enjoying the time with the three of us. I felt our family bond deepen more than ever before. The next day, Eric was nowhere to be found at the company. Fearing that his harassment would come to light, he had vanished. In fact, after my case, there were multiple complaints from other new hires and employees who had been harassed by him, leading to his dismissal by the board. Gerald, the colleague who had recommended the fancy restaurant to me, became the new head of the sales department. No one has worked as hard as you in their first month, Gerald said, praising my efforts. He even took the time to review the proposal Eric had rejected, offering many suggestions. You might become president one day, he said with a laugh, showing affection. I want to continue gaining experience and someday take part in a business that delivers delicious meals to those in need. For now, I'm committed to giving my all to the work in front of me, to help create happy moments around the dining table for others. I work for the sake of society today, as always. I've been married for 20 years now. We don't have any kids, but we're a loving couple, and our reputation as a lovey-dovey pair is widely known within the company where I work. This is largely because I often boast about my good relationship with Emily, whether it's at a drinking gathering or elsewhere. One day, I was at a nearby pub invited by a junior colleague. Could you lend me your ear for some advice? He asked. I was usually approached with such requests, often about how to improve a deteriorating marital relationship. The topics of consultation varied widely from trivial issues to more serious ones. I was approached for advice by a male colleague who had once faced a marriage crisis. He had heard about the good relationship between my wife and me. Although I didn't think I gave any significant advice, that colleague managed to avoid divorce and credited me for it. Since then, for some reason, I started receiving more and more requests for advice on marital matters. A healthy marital relationship is an essential factor in enhancing productivity at the company. Given my position as the HR manager, I couldn't ignore such consultations. Depending on the content of the consultations, there were times when I couldn't help but wonder why someone would ask about certain things. However, when my colleagues come to me for advice, they all have a serious look on their faces. That's why I always take these discussions seriously and engage with my colleagues honestly. As a reference, I sometimes consult with Emily for insights from a female perspective. People often say that after 20 years of marriage, couples stop communicating, but that doesn't apply to us. So I never thought I would end up facing a divorce crisis. It happened one day when, as usual, I had received a consultation regarding marital issues and came home a little late. It was around 9 p.m., but all the lights in the house were off. I called out to Emily as I opened the front door, but there was no response. Emily, a full-time homemaker, rarely left the house at the time I returned. I remembered that she had mentioned having a dinner gathering with her college friends that day, but she had said she would be back by 8 p.m. Is the inside of an empty house always this quiet? I thought to myself as I ventured into the living room. When I turned on the lights, Emily was indeed nowhere to be found. That's when I noticed a piece of paper placed on the table. As I read the message written on it, I was shocked. Thank you for everything. Get along well with that person. It was written. It was a message indicating our breakup. That person undoubtedly referred to another woman. It was apparent that I was suspected of infidelity. However, I had no idea who that person could be. I felt uneasy, but I decided to call Emily. No matter how many times I called, Emily didn't answer, and it didn't go to voicemail. I reluctantly sent a message through WhatsApp, but it remained unread for a long time. I also sent emails, but there was no reply. In desperation, I decided to call Emily's family home. My call, which was a rare occurrence, seemed to surprise my mother-in-law. Is something wrong, Matt? From the tone of her voice, I had a feeling Emily wasn't at her parents' house. I had assumed she had returned there. If Emily wasn't at her parents' house, I hadn't thought about how to explain the reason for my call. Oh no, it's just that Emily was undecided about what to get for Mother's Day, so I thought I could ask you secretly without letting her know. I couldn't help but blurt out those words. However, I felt the awkwardness in that makeshift and cramped excuse. We'll still think it over together, after all. Without waiting to hear my mother-in-law's response, I hastily hung up the phone. Emily didn't come back the next day either, not a single call or message from her. With no clues about Emily's whereabouts, I spent the entire day feeling restless and anxious. It was the evening of the second day since Emily had disappeared. The doorbell rang, and the sound echoed through the quiet house. I rushed to the doorbell monitor, thinking Emily had returned. I was surprised. The person on the monitor was my mother-in-law. I couldn't help but worry about the way you sounded on the phone, she said. Realizing that there was no use in trying to deceive her, I showed my mother-in-law the message Emily had left behind. As soon as she saw it, her expression turned stern. Moreover, she gave me a suspicious look. I explained calmly that I had no idea about the contents of the message. However, my mother-in-law didn't seem convinced. Her expression remained stern. In the end, her doubts about me were unresolved, and she left. Since Emily's disappearance, I have thought repeatedly about what the message meant. I still had no clue as to what it was referring to. After much contemplation, I decided to visit the police station and file a missing person report. However, the police officer I spoke to didn't take me seriously. Even when I persisted, the officer seemed annoyed and asked, "Have there been any strange changes in your wife's behavior recently? For example, any signs of another man?" This unexpected question caught me off guard, and in a fit of anger, I retorted, "There's no way something like that would happen with Emily." However, the officer, who had likely dealt with such attitudes from concerned spouses before, said to me without changing his expression, "I will accept the missing person report for now." I couldn't help but feel that his response was mechanical and that they weren't genuinely interested in finding Emily. As I left the police station and returned home, I couldn't shake off the word cheating that the officer had mentioned. I reflected on Emily's recent behavior, but no matter how I thought about it, I couldn't find any suspicious actions on her part. For days after Emily disappeared, I was awakened by the sound of the doorbell. I had been sleeping in the living room instead of the bedroom since Emily's disappearance, ready to respond to any communication. I was taken aback as I looked at the monitor. It was my mother-in-law who appeared on the screen. I hastily opened the front door. My mother-in-law stood there with a stern expression. I prepared myself for a scolding from her. However, she uttered surprising words to me. "Emily is at my house right now." These unexpected words left me frozen. As I took a deep breath, I snapped back to reality and quickly got ready to leave the house. Just before I left, my mother-in-law said to me, "I suspected you. I'm sorry." It seems that she wanted to apologize in person rather than over the phone. Her expression had been stern because she likely felt sorry for me. As I rushed to Emily's parents' house, I contemplated the situation. The last time my mother-in-law visited my house, Emily was probably at her parents' place. Emily must have suddenly returned home and explained the situation to her. My mother-in-law had likely come to my house to hear the truth directly from me. She might have intended to interrogate me rigorously depending on the circumstances. However, seeing my flustered state at that moment, she might have doubted the accuracy of Emily's words and left without saying anything. Today she probably heard something from Emily and came to apologize. With these thoughts in mind, I hurried to Emily's parents' house. It was about a 20-minute walk from my house, but I wanted to confirm Emily's safety as soon as possible, so I ran. When I arrived, Emily saw my face, apologized, and burst into tears loudly. I felt at a loss for words, somewhat comically disoriented. Finally, when Emily regained her composure, she began speaking quietly. After hearing her story, I felt all the tension leave my body. The reason she had left home was a complete misunderstanding on Emily's part. On that day, it seemed that Emily saw me while she was on her way home after finishing dinner with her friends. I was walking while carrying a small child with a woman in her early 30s beside me. They looked just like a real parent and child, Emily muttered. Hearing that, I remembered the day when Emily spotted me. On that day, I had received a consultation from a junior colleague and had a discussion with his wife in the evening after work. The colleague, who was still working, had 2 children who were about 2 years old. He didn't attend the discussion because he thought he might inadvertently butt in if he was there. The reason the couple's relationship began to deteriorate was that they started having heated arguments due to the wife's constant complaints about him coming home late from work every day. At that time, he was heavily involved in a significant project, especially during its final stages, which required him to work late into the night. When he returned home, he was always exhausted and had no patience to listen to his wife's words. Then one day, his wife's patience reached its limit, and she started getting extremely angry with a furious tone. The employee thought it was bad, but it was already too late. No matter how many times he apologized, his wife seemed beyond consolation. "I can't take it anymore. Please do something," the employee pleaded with me. That's when I took steps to repair their relationship. Of course, Emily did not know these things. Seeing us who appeared to be walking together amicably, Emily instinctively suspected me of cheating. In reality, it was a misunderstanding. We were just walking together to the bus terminal near the station. Emily discreetly followed the 3 of us. It seems her intuition turned into conviction when the child I was holding called me daddy. Moreover, I replied with a cheerful "What's up?" I vividly remember how I couldn't help but feel delighted when a small child called me daddy, and how I responded with a smile. The moment I answered with a smile, Emily said everything went dark before her eyes. Shocked, she left a message at home right after returning and then left the house. When she arrived at her parents' home, she tearfully recounted the day's events to her mother. After releasing all the pent-up emotions, Emily seemed to have found some relief and ended up falling asleep. When Emily woke up, her mother was no longer there. At that moment, her mother must have been on her way to my house. Today, Emily realized that it was all a misunderstanding. One day, at the suggestion of my mother-in-law, who said, "It's better to distract yourself a little," we went to the shopping center. Emily saw the woman and child she had seen in town before, accompanied by a man of the same age. Acting on impulse, Emily rushed towards them. Emily stood in front of the 3 of them, but couldn't find the words to say. The man initially showed a surprised expression when Emily suddenly appeared, but in the next moment he smiled. Emily was taken aback by his next words. "Oh, Mrs. Thomas, hello. We've always appreciated your help." "Why does this man know me?" Emily wondered. It seems the man explained, "Well, Mr. Thomas had a picture of you two on his smartphone's wallpaper. He proudly showed it off when we talked about our troubled relationship. But the other day, your child called him daddy," Emily mentioned, and the woman beside the man had a puzzled look. Then, in the next moment, she apologetically explained, "I'm sorry. Our child calls any adult man daddy." Someone overheard it and misunderstood. Upon hearing Emily's explanation, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. "You were always a bit clumsy, but this one is the funniest until now." When Emily was told that, she became embarrassed. Then she finally smiled. While looking at her smile for the first time in 4 days, I couldn't help but say, "Please continue showing me that smile from now on." In response, Emily nodded quietly. "Are you enjoying your trip?" Ben asked over the phone. I could only look down in response. I couldn't say anything back. Ben seemed puzzled by my silence. I couldn't tell him how miserable I was feeling. I couldn't say I was being constantly exploited by my husband and mother-in-law. What should I do? How can I escape this lowest of low positions as a human being? How can I get back at my mother-in-law and husband? I decided to confess the truth. I couldn't bear it alone anymore. I was going to tell Ben everything. Whatever happens next, I'll accept it with resolve. I started to speak to Ben. "My name is Ellen, a housewife in my 40s. I live with my husband Jackie and my parents-in-law, making us a family of 4. My mother-in-law Shannon regularly harasses me, making me work hard and saying terrible things. Ben used to warn her, but she got sneakier, doing it without him noticing. Both Ben and Jackie are fooled by this. Get out of this house. I'm sick of living with you. I was bombarded with such words daily. My heart was already exhausted, but I managed to keep going because Ben supported me. Ellen, you're doing great, Jackie and Shannon. We all appreciate it. Sorry for Shannon's harsh behavior. I wish she could see your charm, Ellen. Ben's kind words made me love him as if he were my real family. Forced to live with my parents-in-law right after marriage, Shannon's orders kept me working. Ben's words were my salvation. My relationship with Shannon worsened, but I managed because Ben was on my side. Even when I felt broken, Ben's words could repair me. That's why I could think, I'll try harder next time. Jackie never sided with me. He even supported Shannon. It's your fault for not listening to Mom, he said. Ben always scolded Jackie for that. Ben, my father-in-law, was someone I was proud of despite the hardship. I somehow got through each day. One day, Shannon suggested a trip. She wanted to go with Jackie and me to Ben's vacation home. Ben isn't much of a traveler. He prefers staying home. Ben, who had inherited his vacation home from relatives, would clean it regularly but mostly left it unused. Although I'd been there for cleaning several times, the place was impressive, surrounded by tourist attractions. I too thought it was a waste not being used. However, the idea of going with Shannon and Jackie, the worst combination, wasn't appealing. I wanted to stay home, but Shannon insisted. That's not happening. Jackie and I plan to have a barbecue. Who will prepare it if you're not here? Plus, we need you to drive there. Without you, we can't enjoy our trip, Shannon said, clearly treating me as nothing more than a housekeeper. Hearing her, I wasn't so docile to agree easily. Do you think I'd willingly go just for that? If I'm traveling, I want to enjoy it too. If it's just for you two to have a good time, I don't want to go, I responded. Such arrogance for a son's wife. Shouldn't you just follow along quietly? Don't you want to serve your parents-in-law? Shannon challenged. But I started anyway. A son's wife doesn't have the right to refuse. Just go and get Ben's permission. After that, Shannon wouldn't listen to anything I said, ignoring my voice and my pleas. Realizing resistance was futile, I had to talk to Ben. A trip. That's nice. Take this chance to relax, Ellen, Ben said, unaware of everything, with a kind smile. I wanted to tell him everything Shannon had said right then, but doing so would only cause more trouble between the in-laws, something I couldn't bear. So I suppressed my feelings and replied with a smile, thank you. Let me know if something comes up. I was too afraid to further damage the in-laws' relationship and said nothing. The day of the trip seemed so daunting. I couldn't help but wish it would end quickly. I was already thinking that as I was dragged out by an excited Jackie and Shannon early in the morning. I was behind the wheel. It was hard enough to be up so early, and I had to drive while Shannon and Jackie comfortably slept in the back seat. Resentful and rubbing my sleepy eyes, we finally arrived at Ben's vacation home. Then I need you to buy barbecue supplies, Shannon demanded. Exhausted from the long drive and lack of sleep, I asked for a rest. A son's wife's job is to listen to us. I won't tolerate any defiance, she snapped. Jackie added, if you defy us, we might as well leave you here in the mountains right now. His words were harsh. With Ben, who always protected me, not here, I reluctantly went alone to a distant grocery store for the barbecue. After laboriously carrying too much food for 3 people, I was then told to prepare the barbecue. The tools were there but hadn't been used in years, so cleaning and replenishing missing items were needed. I ended up preparing everything, phone in hand, looking up what I didn't know. Meanwhile, Shannon and Jackie relaxed inside the vacation home, lying on the sofa. They casually said things like looking forward to the barbecue and can't wait for the setup to be done without any regard for my feelings. It was still cold outside, and despite being bundled up, cold is cold. Rubbing my numb hands together, I finished the preparations. Finally, Shannon and Jackie came out. Good job, you can go back inside the house now, Ellen, Shannon said. But aren't we going to the barbecue? I asked. Yes, but just Jackie and me. Prepare your own meal, she replied, and then left to join Jackie. They started the barbecue without me, leaving me behind after all the prep work. I had to make my own meal. The unfairness was overwhelming, but I held back my frustration and returned inside. Luckily, I wasn't asked to do anything else that day and could relax in the assigned room. The next day, Shannon called me again. We're going to a famous spa, she said with excitement, talking to Jackie. That's great. I'll get ready, I responded. No need, Shannon said. You stay here. We'll enjoy the spa, just the two of us, she smiled. Jackie agreed. Nice idea, he said. While I was relieved not to have to go with them, I still felt a sense of unresolved frustration. Left behind by Jackie and Shannon, I stayed in the room. They took the car, and since the vacation home was in the mountains, there was nothing nearby for entertainment. The trip was boring, killing time in the room. My mobile phone rang. It was Ben. Answering the call, he said he was concerned and wanted to check in. Enjoying your trip? Ben asked, his voice filled with hope. I didn't know how to respond. Should I honestly tell him I was left alone in the room, feeling lonely, that I couldn't even enjoy the barbecue and was bored? I wondered if sharing this would upset Ben. Previously, my defiance toward Shannon and snitching to Ben had severely strained the in-laws' relationship. I had often witnessed their disputes, and undeniably it was my fault. Yet I couldn't bring myself to complain any further to Ben, fearing it would worsen their relationship and cause him more pain. Faced with such thoughts, I found myself unable to speak. Ben seemed puzzled by my silence. Is something wrong? He asked gently. Each time he asked, my heart wavered, thinking I should just be honest about everything. I was at my limit. I couldn't bear Shannon and Jackie's harassment any longer. I didn't want to be manipulated by them anymore. Resolutely, I decided to tell Ben everything. I'm here as a housekeeper, I said. Ben murmured in surprise. What? What do you mean by that, Ellen? Exactly as I said. I was brought on this trip to work. Right now, they're at the spa, and I'm left here to house sit. Ben gasped. That's unbelievable, he said, even over the phone. I could feel his pain. I didn't want to cause such a kind and caring person like Ben a distress, but I had reached my breaking point. I told Ben everything that had happened since arriving at the vacation home. Ben was outraged. Incredible. You work to the bone, and they don't even thank you. They just leave you to house sit. I'll contact Shannon right away. Can you wait a little longer, Ellen? He said. I nodded and hung up. After a while, Jackie called. What do you think you're doing? Telling Dad. That's sneaky. His voice was angry and panicked, probably scolded by Ben. I only did what was right. What you and Shannon did to me deserves at least as much. What grudge do you have against us? Are you happy ruining someone's family? He retorted. You're talking about ruining lives when you're currently ruining mine, I replied. Jackie fell silent, probably at a loss for words. Given the extent of this, continuing our marriage seems impossible. I know it's odd to say here, but let's get a divorce. I can't deal with you anymore. Jackie started to panic. I was wrong. I said too much. Please don't talk about divorce. We need you, Ellen. Think it over. You don't need me. You need a housekeeper, right? I shot back. Jackie and Shannon didn't want me. They wanted a compliant housekeeper, someone who wouldn't resist and would just follow orders. It's unrealistic to expect someone to do that when it's not even their job. Two people, both utterly selfish in their ways, but this would end today. If everything went smoothly, I'd finally be free from them. The thought made my heart leap with excitement. Shannon's voice came through the phone as Jackie fell silent, unable to respond. Give it to me, Ellen. What do you think you're doing? Are you happy making us the villains by telling Ben unnecessary things? Shannon was yelling. The old me would have been scared of her, but now, with the divorce and my impending freedom from Shannon near, she didn't scare me at all. It's because you and Jackie are too selfish. If you had treated me with more respect, this wouldn't have happened, I said. I always thought you were too cheeky for a son's wife. When I became Ben's wife, my mother-in-law treated me much stricter, and I persevered every day. I'm trying to toughen you up, Shannon exclaimed. Isn't that mindset outdated? Why must family members be at odds? Can't we cooperate on things we can't do alone? It's clear our views are too different, Shannon. I can't stay in this family if it means enduring such treatment. You won't survive anywhere with that attitude. Do you think it's okay for a son's wife to talk back to her mother-in-law like that? She barked. It doesn't matter since we're getting a divorce, I replied. Shannon scolded me, but who did she think she was? She only made me do housework, criticizing my methods, my attitude, always complaining without reason. How was that tying me up? I didn't understand it at all. No need to engage further. I decided to pack my bags and head to the nearest bus stop. If I could reach the airport, I could go back home. I was tired of being subjected to Shannon and Jackie's whims. I'm going home, I said, about to hang up when Shannon's desperate voice came through. Wait, you'll regret this. Ignoring her like the howl of a defeated dog, I hung up. packed my bags, and prepared to leave. For the first time since coming, I felt lighthearted and noticed the beauty of nature surrounding Ben's vacation home. I went back home and started preparing for the divorce. Fortunately, Ben introduced me to a lawyer who seemed very dependable. Upon consultation, I decided to hire him. However, Shannon and Jackie refused to accept the divorce. Instead, they made absurd claims like, "Come back and we'll forgive you for a payment," as if I would pay to return to that terrible situation. Still, they stubbornly persisted, so I consulted with the lawyer about our next steps. One day, I received a call from Ben. Apparently, the two were insistent on meeting me just once. "You don't have to if it's too much, but," Ben said. Not wanting to trouble him further, I decided to meet them with a lawyer present. The meeting was set in a private room of a restaurant, arranged and paid for by Ben. Arriving early, I waited in the room. Soon, Shannon and Jackie entered. "What are you thinking? You don't come home, and now you're demanding alimony. Is that how you treat family?" They bombarded me with harsh words. I'd never felt like family to them. "But Ben," I started, "they've been horrible to me." I couldn't understand why I was the only one being blamed. I looked down, unsure of what to say. "Enough." Ben raised his voice. "You said you wanted to apologize, so Ellen came here, and all you do is insult her. What's the purpose of your visit if not to apologize?" Ben, usually mild-mannered, was furious, a side of him I'd never seen before. Even Shannon and Jackie seemed taken aback by his anger. Ben was that angry. Moved by Ben's defense, I felt tears welling up. Jackie, perhaps prompted by Ben, tried to apologize despite Shannon's protests. "I'm truly sorry. Please come back. We can't manage without you," Jackie said. Jackie then described the chaos at the in-laws' house. Ben had left them tired of their behavior, and now Shannon and Jackie were struggling in their large house. Shannon had turned her hostility towards Jackie, who was now juggling work and house chores, constantly berated by Shannon. I noticed the exhaustion on Jackie's face, dark circles under his eyes and chapped lips. He seemed utterly worn out. The torment he had once inflicted on me was now being directed at him by Shannon. Jackie desperately pleaded for me to return, but Shannon interrupted. "You fooled Ben and now Jackie. You're a wicked woman. Marrying you was a mistake." Shannon raged with misplaced anger. Jackie looked scared by her outburst. Jackie kept pleading for me to return while Shannon hurled insults, calling me a demon. Nodding to their requests meant returning to a hellish life. Who would willingly choose that? "I have no intention of going back there. The divorce will definitely go through," I said firmly. "Please, somehow," Jackie pleaded desperately. Despite feeling a bit sorry for him, I remembered how he had mocked me. "No matter what you say, my decision won't change." "Is that all?" "I don't want to waste more time on you." Ben nodded his approval, and I left the private room. Jackie's plea, "Wait for me," echoed loudly. The recording of the meeting, which I had made, was handed over to my lawyer as evidence. The abnormal behavior of Shannon and Jackie was clearly documented, and the divorce was successfully finalized. Later, I heard that Ben divorced Shannon and cut ties with Jackie. Jackie, driven to escape from Shannon, had moved out of the in-laws' house. According to a mutual friend, Jackie's mental health deteriorated significantly because of Shannon, affecting his work and leading him to seek counseling. Shannon continued living in the in-laws' house, now infamous in the neighborhood as a garbage house, unable to pay for utilities. My actions might have contributed to the disintegration of the in-laws' relationships. However, post-divorce, I've been living true to myself, not solely by my own strength. I've been meeting Ben frequently. Often he insists on paying for meals as his way of apologizing for the trouble caused. I have no resentment towards Ben, who has always been helpful. I've indulged in his kindness. He's planning to take me to a fine restaurant next, a prospect I eagerly anticipate as I continue to strive forward each day. My name is Heather. I'm 24 years old and I work in an office. Right now, I'm waiting for my date with Tim. We've been seeing each other for 3 months. This is actually my first time dating a guy. I grew up in the countryside with lots of farms and very few people. Sometimes I wondered if there were more raccoons than humans. When I moved to the city, I was amazed by all the buildings and people. My dad was very strict and made me focus on my studies. About 6 months ago, we had a big fight. I told him I was an adult and should make my own choices. He disagreed and said if I didn't listen, I should leave. So, I left and gained my independence. A friend took me to a social event, and that's where I met Tim. Heather, have you been waiting long? Tim asked. Nope, I just got here, I replied. Tim is caring and always makes time for our weekly dates, even though he's busy. He suddenly pulled out a necklace and put it on me. I don't know if you like it, he said. It's beautiful, thank you. I was thrilled. My parents never let me wear a necklace or gave me birthday presents. I admired the necklace Tim gave me. The next day, a colleague said, it's probably from a dollar store. Another junior colleague said, I don't know what kind of guy he is, but he must think you're easy to please. If I were you, I'd be mad about a dollar store item. I was surprised. I didn't notice it was from a dollar store, but I was happy because it was the thought that counted. Well, if you're okay with it, then it's fine, she shrugged. Then Tim suddenly broke up with me over the phone. We hadn't talked much lately, and he seemed different. We used to talk and go on dates often, but that stopped. When I tried to reach out, he became distant. When he finally answered, he seemed cold. Let's break up, he said. Why? Did I do something to upset you? I asked. No, not really. Then why? I wanted to know the reason, but he just sighed. Such a hassle, he said. What? Why all of a sudden? I was flustered, my voice choked with tears. It seemed like Tim didn't like that poor people always cry easily. Our phone call abruptly ended, and despite my many attempts to reach him, he never answered. Being dumped without understanding the reason made me really sad, and I couldn't eat for a while. Heather, try to cheer up. You haven't eaten anything, and you're losing weight, my junior colleague said, worried about me. She took good care of me, but I was still down. Fast forward 3 years. One day, I was enjoying burgers at the park with my junior when a couple walked by. We're going on a night cruise for dinner. Oh, it's the popular premium one. Awesome, I can't wait, said a familiar voice. When I looked up, I saw Tim in a glossy suit and a flashy woman in a short jacket, mini skirt, and high heels. I was surprised to see Tim again, but he didn't notice me. Instead, he snorted dismissively at us. That's lame. Fast food at the park totally screams poverty. Ha ha ha, if you say something like that, she might cry, Tim said, laughing with his girlfriend. Tim continued, I'm shocked. I knew you were poor, but you're still scraping the bottom. Breaking up was the right call. He sneered at me and my junior, who were eating burgers. Wait, Tim, you used to date someone like this? Were you blind? The woman said, fanning herself with her flashy nails. She seemed rich when we first met at a party, but she was happy with a dollar store necklace. What a turnoff. Now she's eating a burger at a park. Totally bottom class. Tim kept saying horrible things, and his attitude was so different from when we dated. My junior raised her voice. Hey, how could you be so rude? Apologize right now. You're annoying. Birds of a feather flock together. People like you always have a big mouth but no bite. Tim and his girlfriend continued to laugh at us. Hey, enough is enough, Heather. Let's just ignore them, my junior said, still upset. I noticed people around us whispering and looking bothered, so I calmed her down. Ha ha ha, you can't even argue back. You're really hopeless. Enjoy being poor. It doesn't seem like you'll ever pull off brand name clothes like us, Tim said as they walked away briskly. Heather, aren't you upset? Do you still have feelings for him? My junior asked, still furious. I shook my head. Want to go on a dinner cruise? I asked. My junior was caught off guard for a moment. And are their clothes really knockoffs? She asked. When I nodded, I explained my plan to her. A few hours later, dressed up, my junior and I headed for the dinner cruise. There was a long line for the popular cruise, where people could enjoy city lights from a luxury liner and a fancy dinner. Noticing the couple we saw earlier in the line, my junior and I walked past them. Heather. Tim waved dismissively as he noticed us. What's up, broken lonely woman? You miss me so much you followed me here, even changing your clothes. No can do. Honestly, I can't deal with someone like you. Next to him, his girlfriend was also laughing. You regretted it that much? Too bad you can't get a ticket now. Even I had a hard time getting this. She waved the tickets and grinned. My junior colleague, in a cheerful mood, pulled out our tickets from her purse. Those are just regular tickets, right? You struggled to get those. Heather can easily get express tickets even on the same day. What? And not just express, but the most expensive private room premium tickets. Those are not less than several $1,000s, right? Seeing their shocked faces, my junior grinned. Well, good luck with the line. Leading my grinning junior, I bypassed the long line and headed towards the express gate. Why? What the heck, Tim? What's her deal? She isn't just a lowly woman, right? Their voices reached us from afar. Serves them right, isn't that right, Heather? My junior seemed happy that our revenge went well. Half an hour later, as departure time approached, Tim and his girlfriend approached us on the exclusive terrace where we were enjoying our welcome drinks. Shouldn't this area be off limits with your tickets? Shut up and explain, Tim approached aggressively. My junior frowned and whispered to me that she was going to call someone, then quickly turned around. Unperturbed, Tim continued to pressure me. Why does a lowlife like you have express tickets? You even made a fool out of us in public. Thanks to you, we were laughed at while we were in line. We've been embarrassed and can't keep quiet anymore. You must have gone into debt or something to force your way through. Now get laughed at by the express passengers. Apologize now for a poor person overstretching. As the couple kept making a fuss, the other passengers on the terrace started to gather around. Then Tim, who was staring at my chest, let out a creepy chuckle. Even if you somehow managed to get the ticket, this is not acceptable, Heather. Ha! As I tilted my head, Tim put his hands in his pockets, puffed his chest out, and looked confident. Well, even if you change your clothes, I bet it's just some cheap junk. Did you dump all your money into the ticket? Strutting around with a necklace from the dollar store, and you think you're some big shot? Gonna live off of just water in the park? Smile, huh? Ha ha, no, that's funny. A dollar store. I stared at him intently as I repeated his words. Are you really into these kids' toys? But come on, it's pathetic for an adult to be wearing dollar store stuff. Tim pointed to my necklace and laughed loudly for everyone to hear. As the murmurs among the passengers grew louder, Tim's girlfriend also raised her voice. Timmy, you're lucky you dumped this poor woman. Now you're in love with me. Both of them laughed, calling me a poor woman again. I didn't think you were this kind of person when we were dating. I regret being so blind, I retorted. Tim laughed as if it was the funniest thing he'd heard. That's rich coming from you. She's a real lady compared to you. I'm embarrassed that I even dated someone like you. Give me back the time I wasted on you, you poor thing. Tim's voice echoed throughout the patio as the crowd around us backed away. We heard some people hurrying toward us. Security, over here. Catch them, those two. My junior colleague led the security officers who swiftly surrounded Tim and his girlfriend. What the hell, man? Get out of our way. You're ruining everything. Although they protested loudly, their tickets didn't allow them access to this area in the first place. Moreover, their ruckus attracted a crowd, and security managed to hold them. We're customers. You can't just grab us like this. You should be grabbing that woman. She's the one who doesn't belong here. She's poor. But the security officers maintained a stern look, leering at the rowdy pair. Despite this, Tim did not stop hurling insults at me. Enough already. My junior colleague raised her voice. I don't know what you're misunderstanding, but Heather isn't poor. Ha! Are you just bluffing? Hilarious, Tim laughed. That's right, you liar, his girlfriend added. It's not a lie, my junior colleague said. There are people here who know we're right. At her urging, a few hands rose among the passengers. Raise your hands if you can confirm that Heather is the future president and that this cruise is managed by a subsidiary of the large company run by her father, my colleague continued. More hands went up. Tim and his girlfriend finally stopped their resistance, looking dumbfounded with their mouths wide open. Future president? Tim stammered, unable to grasp the situation. He looked back and forth between me and the other passengers. What does that mean? You said you were just a regular employee. At the time, I explained. I was fed up with all the business studies my father forced on me, so I quarreled with him and left home. I chose to work at a company unrelated to my father because I wanted to be away from him. But 2 years ago, my father fell ill, and I returned home. When I was down after being dumped by you, I accepted my father's apology, who had softened due to his illness, and returned to the path of management. It can't be, Tim said, shocked. Tim's girlfriend was equally stunned. Tim, your outfit tonight, all of it, was my doing. You wanted it to look low-key expensive, so it may look plain, but it required hundreds of dollars. Oh, and the necklace you mocked. It's not a dollar store toy. Heather, how much was that? About $100,000, I guess, I replied. No way, Tim gasped. Chuckles leaked out from the onlookers as Tim and his girlfriend looked like their souls had been sucked out. I apologize, everyone, I said to the crowd. My father is always grateful for your hard work, and today he invited everyone as a thank you. That's why I was able to get tickets so easily. Realizing my necklace was actually an ultra-luxury item worth over $100,000, Tim's face turned pale. Heather, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I'll apologize for everything. I'll break up with her. Flip-flopping now? Who do you think got you on this cruise in the first place? His girlfriend snapped. Shut up, you flashy woman. You don't see your gaudy brand clothes at all? Tim retorted. What did you say? You're not cool at all, even in your shiny clothes. Apologize to the clothes for not being suitable for brand items. As security was about to escort the two arguing among themselves, I smiled and said, You two seem to think each other's clothes are brand name, but those aren't knockoffs, are they? Huh? The two looked at each other, startled. You can fool each other, but you know you're wearing fake brands, right? If you can fool each other, doesn't that mean neither of you has an eye for quality? Well, I can't really talk since I can't tell the difference with dollar store items. The passengers, noticing my sarcasm, giggled. Don't mess with me, Tim and his girlfriend shouted, shaking off security and hurling insults at each other. They won't be able to sit at their dinner table anymore. They probably overreached on the tickets, my junior colleague shrugged. The dinner course was so good. I wanted to show off. I wish they could have at least eaten it. You're so serious about it. It's funny, my junior colleague laughed out loud. All the same, it makes sense for you to be here, I said. Should I really have let you buy such an expensive outfit for me? Absolutely, my junior colleague replied. Between us, the CEO is about to change soon. My dad is fine now, but he's saying he can't handle the load anymore because of his age. This outfit and necklace you chose, I plan on using them for the inauguration ceremony. Will you attend in that outfit as well? Well, if that's the case, I'm thrilled. I'll follow your lead from now on. Let's stay friends even when we're old as grandmas, okay? Yeah, I agreed. We enjoyed a dinner cruise with such conversations. A few hours later, as we disembarked from the ship, Tim was waiting for us. Hey Heather, let's give it another shot. You and me. I promise I'll turn over a new leaf because I don't think I'll ever meet someone as pure-hearted as you who can be moved by something from a dollar store. Tim's belly grumbled loudly as he begged pitifully. It seemed they had been isolated in an empty room during the cruise as their ruckus was disturbing the other guests. You didn't eat dinner, did you? I asked. Nah, skipping a meal isn't a big deal. More importantly, I beg you, Heather, Tim pleaded. In response, I took something out of my bag. Here, if you'd like, you can have this. Oh, thanks, Heather. Wait, what's this? A wristwatch from a dollar store. What, Heather? Are you trying to get back at me? Don't call me Heather. I don't want to see you at all from now on. If this was worth $100 grand, you'd be happy, wouldn't you? But if it's a dollar store item, you don't want it. In the end, all you see is money. Wait a minute, excuse me, security, I called out. Tim was restrained by the security guards once again and dragged away. Later, I heard that Tim had caused another uproar, argued with his girlfriend, and ending up getting reported. Apparently, he's often seen at the park, bloating his stomach with water. I'm sure he's broken up with his girlfriend. On the other hand, I successfully became CEO and now work hard every day with a reliable junior at my side. The newly launched burger chain is doing better than expected, and there's even talk of opening more new stores. I haven't found a new love interest yet, but I hope to meet a good person next time. My name is Tammy, and I'm 39 years old. I've been working in the sales department of a trading company for many years. Since I was a student, I've always been good at leading groups and bringing people together. Now, I manage several team members and my sales performance is just as good as the experienced male team members. My female colleagues trust and support me as a reliable manager, which makes me proud. However, when I come home to my apartment after a long day at work, there's no one to welcome me. I recently separated from my husband of 17 years and decided to live apart from my 15-year-old daughter. My new apartment is still full of unpacked boxes, but I don't regret my decision. I'm ready to start fresh. Let me explain why I chose this new life. I used to live with my husband Bob and our daughter Rebecca. Bob was a college classmate, and after meeting again post-graduation, we dated for 2 years before getting married. Bob worked in the sales department of a printing company but later became a self-employed web designer, working from home. Our daughter Rebecca is in 8th grade. The first sign of trouble was her changing attitude. One day, she said to me, "I told you to buy the moisturizing cream." I apologized, saying I forgot but would get it after work. She responded, "You're totally useless. I can't believe it." Her words became harsher each day, and she looked at me with cold eyes. I told myself it was just her age. Bob's behavior changed too. He started spending more time with Rebecca and excluded me. They planned outings together without me and asked me for money, which felt excessive. Even Bob began treating me poorly, and our conversations dwindled, making me feel isolated. One Sunday, Bob and Rebecca complained about breakfast. I had prepared breakfast when Bob snapped, "What the hell is this? I always tell you I want my eggs over easy. Get it right." I tried to calm him down. "Well, there's no need to be so upset." Rebecca chimed in, "And the soup doesn't taste good. Didn't I tell you before that I hate mushrooms?" I responded, "But they're good for you." Then, I asked Bob, "Can't you say something to her?" Bob replied coldly, "What do you mean? It's your fault for not being able to do a single thing you're told. And you're supposed to be an adult." Their cold words made me realize something was off. I wanted to know why. By the time I figured it out, it was already too late. One week, I learned Bob was planning to go out, so I decided to secretly follow him. Since Bob worked from home, he had no reason to go out, making me suspicious. My fears came true. At a cafe, Bob met a young woman in her 20s with a good figure. When they left, they walked arm in arm. I felt dizzy and couldn't follow them. The day I dreaded had arrived. I had always been afraid Bob might run off with another woman because I lacked confidence in my looks. Bob, on the other hand, was undeniably handsome, making me wonder why he chose me. Later, I hired a detective to investigate Bob's relationship with the woman. The detective revealed that Bob's mistress was a 26-year-old named Sofia Garcia who worked at a cosmetic surgery clinic. Among the evidence photos, there were explicit ones of them kissing and entering a hotel. Shockingly, some photos included Rebecca. "What's going on? What does this mean?" I asked the detective. "It appears that your husband's relationship with Sofia is approved by Rebecca," he replied. I was dumbstruck, feeling an acute sense of alienation and loneliness. What had I done to deserve this? Holding back tears, I asked the detective to record conversations between Bob and Rebecca. They would take money from me to enjoy their movie dates and shopping sprees. I was certain there must be undeniable evidence in their banter. Days later, I listened to the recordings. I was speechless. "She's seriously annoying. She can't even follow simple instructions and then tries to play the mother card," Rebecca said. "While she is technically your mom, why don't you just dump her already?" "Sophia has been waiting patiently, hasn't she?" Bob replied. "About that, Rebecca, I'm thinking it's still too soon to think about divorce." "That doesn't make any sense. Sophia has been waiting, right? I've talked it through with Sophia. I just can't stand breathing the same air as that ugly woman." "Same here, but she earns the money, more than me, frustratingly so." "You get it, right?" "Is that so? I didn't really know." "Yeah, that's how it is. If I divorce her carelessly, I won't be able to use that money. We've got to play this carefully. So we just pull out all the money we can, and then let Sophia move in." "That's right. I need to check if Sophia can handle that kind of life, and if not, I'll have to persuade her. I think Sophia will be fine. She's so understanding. Beautiful women are just different, you know." Yeah, I know. I regret it so much. The biggest mistake of my life was marrying that ugly woman. That day, under a hot shower, I wept copiously. I cried and cried until I finally made up my mind. Enough was enough. If that was their plan, so be it. I'm not stupid. Rather than let them take advantage of me, I decided it was time to take serious action. I remember the tough weeks that followed. Each day, I suppressed my emotions and proceeded with my preparations. Even when Rebecca's middle school graduation day arrived, I felt no profound emotions. "Oh my gosh, I can't decide on a hairstyle. It's so frustrating. Who gave me this face, seriously?" Rebecca complained, looking in the mirror. She was the spitting image of me. I pretended to ignore her usual grouchy remarks. Then she said, "Hey, I need some money. Around $400 will do." "What's a kid gonna do with $400? Besides, today's your graduation ceremony, isn't it?" "Well, obviously, because it's graduation, I'm going out with friends afterward and eating out with Dad too." In the end, I handed Rebecca the $400. "This is the last time." I thought as I did so. Rebecca took the money without a word of thanks and said, "Hey, I'm gonna get plastic surgery soon." Plastic surgery? Yeah, I'm saying goodbye to this ugly face that looks just like yours. I can't wait for a total transformation before high school starts. Okay. Huh, I'm surprised. I thought you would be much more against it. What a letdown. Well, I won't say anything. It's your body, Rebecca. Yeah, you know what I mean, right? It's only natural to want to get plastic surgery with a face like this. It's your fault. Afterward, I drove Bob and Rebecca to her middle school. Rebecca made me stop the car a little before we got to the school. Dad and I will get off here. You can go home. You know I don't want my friends to see you, right? Of course, I replied and went home. I had no interest in attending the ceremony. Everything went as planned, which felt quite nice. I returned to the apartment and waited. A truck and 3 men arrived. All right, we'll pack and move things out. Given the amount of stuff, I think we should be done in about 2 hours. Thank you, I appreciate your help. That day, I moved to a new apartment, leaving the divorce papers on the table of the old apartment. I had put in a vacation request at work and toured several places domestically, savoring the rare freedom. Perhaps I could have enjoyed it more without the persistent calls from Bob and Rebecca. A few days later, I returned to the new apartment, all rested for my journey. When I finally answered one of Bob's incessant calls, he sounded flustered. You finally answered. Hey, where are you? What are you doing? I'm just relaxing in my room, watching TV. What is it? You sound so flustered. Is something wrong? What do you mean, is something wrong? What do you mean by your room? Explain yourself properly. There's no need to explain. You saw it, didn't you? The divorce papers, that's all. No explanation is needed, right? So, you knew about your what? If you mean your affair. I knew. I have no intention of breaking up. I figured with your income you can't support Rebecca, but tough luck. I'm getting divorced and taking alimony too. Who says I'm going to pay alimony? We should talk about this matter calmly. Oh yes, you can bring Rebecca along or not. It doesn't matter to me. I didn't really want to see them anymore, so I abruptly ended the call, turned off my phone, and cut off contact. I chose the cafe where Bob first met Sophia for our discussion, but only Bob came. There was no sign of Rebecca. She must be fresh out of plastic surgery, poor girl. Who's that with you? Bob asked. This is my attorney, Mr. Johnson. You brought a lawyer. Well, did you bring the filled out divorce papers as I asked? As I've said, I won't fill out such a thing. I'll tell you as many times as it takes. I have no intention of breaking up. Do you just want the money? Do you think we can continue our marriage for that reason? Who said I'm after your money? Who said it? You're making assumptions about people's feelings, I retorted. I gave Mr. Johnson a nod. He took out his smartphone and calmly pressed play. What started to play was a conversation between Bob and Rebecca from that day. Bob's face turned pale instantly. It's quite something to have your own bad mouthing played out right in front of you. I don't want to breathe the same air as that ugly woman. If I carelessly break up with her, I won't be able to use the money, Bob's voice echoed. No matter how many times I hear them, those harsh words cut right through my heart. Knowing that this is his true feeling sends chills down my spine. A recording? What the hell do you think you're doing? What am I doing? I think I should be the one to ask that. Did you use the money I gave you to go out with that woman, Sophia? That's not exactly. Mr. Johnson interrupted. May I confirm something? You don't intend to divorce, correct? Bob nodded, and Mr. Johnson continued. In that case, we will file for divorce with the family court. We can also discuss the division of assets. The court will hear the circumstances and verify the facts to decide whether or not the divorce should proceed. He held up the smartphone. The conversation with your daughter earlier is quite decisive. In my personal opinion, the divorce is almost certain. Oh, Bob stammered. I came here today to talk about what comes next. I started taking out various documents. This chart shows how much money I gave you and when. This one is a record of utility bill payments. What the hell? What are you showing me all this for? And this is a record of money withdrawn from our joint account. Rebecca's surgery cost quite a bit, didn't it? Eyelid surgery, eye shape correction, double eyelid surgery, nostril reduction, philtrum reduction, creating tear bags, cheek and nasal bone shaving. The surgeries totaled $40,000. There's only about $20,000 left in savings. There used to be $70,000. You've spent quite a bit, haven't you? That was for Rebecca. I could save up again. Do you realize that I was the one who mostly saved up that money? I'm really starting to get angry. I'm okay with splitting what's left in the account for the division of property. I won't say anything about Rebecca's surgery costs. However, what? Bob interrupted. I expect you to pay for the emotional distress I've suffered, so keep that in mind. And wait, there's more. Have you kept in touch with that woman, Sophia? No, not really. That's what I thought, because, well, I hired a private investigator to look into her. She's got a criminal record, so you better be careful. A criminal record? She was charged with fraud and was arrested. She was in cahoots with the director of another cosmetic surgery clinic. What the? She must have thought you and Rebecca were easy targets. My condolences. Rebecca? What about Rebecca's surgery then? I hope everything went well. Otherwise, we might have to negotiate with the hospital. Might even have to sue them. We'll have to see whether the clinic would agree to a settlement. In that case, there are many dishonest clinics that deny their mistakes and dig in their heels. Hearing Mr. Johnson's words, Bob's face noticeably turned pale. That's all for today. Send the divorce papers, okay? Direct them to Mr. Johnson since I obviously won't be giving you my address. Wait, please. One last thing. Can you lend me some money? Bob looked pitiful. I'm ashamed I ever fell for such a man. Absolutely not. I left the cafe with Mr. Johnson, leaving a devastated Bob behind. According to rumors, Bob and Rebecca's life turned into a complete mess afterward. On Bob's salary alone, it was hard to afford an apartment and support Rebecca. Eventually, Rebecca had to start doing odd jobs like newspaper delivery, and they moved to a cheaper apartment, downgrading their living standard with just his web design projects. He couldn't make ends meet and even had to take up day labor. Pitiful, really, but Bob must pull through. After all, he hasn't finished paying my alimony yet. I decided to let him pay it off in installments. Paying out $30,000 all at once would have been impossible for Bob, given his small business, which barely covered his side income. Borrowing money would have been out of the question too. I could have let him borrow money from a loan shark, but I didn't want to put that much pressure on him. A few days later, I received a call from Rebecca. As expected, the surgery was a total failure. It was far from ideal. Rebecca and I met at the cafe and had a long chat after not seeing each other for a long time. She still had bandages on part of her face. The surgery left marks, and I need another operation to remove them. It's the worst. Still can't get in touch with that Sophia girl, huh? Yeah, you were right, Mom. She only saw us as easy targets. Rebecca stared out the window, a far-off look in her eyes. She seemed more mature to me than before. Well, I gotta go now. I have to go to my part-time job and do my high school homework afterward. I'm really busy. Good luck. Thanks, Mom. I'm really sorry for all the trouble I've caused. No need to be polite all of a sudden. I won't give you any money. Okay, I won't ask for it anymore. With a wave, Rebecca left the cafe. And that's how I ended up where I am today. I don't have many regrets. I'm satisfied with my current life. Rebecca is practically living on her own now, and I have no lingering feelings for my good-for-nothing ex-husband who had nothing going for him except his looks. I saw him the other day in town. He was covered in dirt, working in construction gear with a helmet. Did he always have such gloomy eyes? He looked so different I barely recognized him. Making a living is hard work, and he deserved to be in such a pitiful state after wasting so much money. It's not all about looks. I truly believe that now. I will continue to do my best as I am. In my eyes, the future now looks brighter than ever as I've hit the reset button on my life. Wake up, please. My husband always had a gentle face, even while sleeping. In his casket, it seemed like he would wake up any moment if I called out to him. Well, off I go, he had said cheerfully to me and our daughter before leaving on a business trip 2 days ago. I never imagined that would be the last time I heard his voice. He took his own life. No matter how much I called out, my husband, now cold as ice, wouldn't respond. Despite all this, I found it hard to believe what had happened. Then, I noticed a single photo placed on my husband's chest. It was a family photo I didn't remember putting there. Who could have placed this photo here? Intrigued, I picked up the photo and flipped it over. It read, "Run away now." Chills ran down my spine as I turned around and locked eyes with my mother-in-law, who was looking at me with a cold gaze. I had no idea of the nightmares that awaited me. My name is Bella. I'm 32 years old. Both my parents passed away in a car accident when I was still in college, leaving me all alone in this world. The grief was unbearable, but John, my then boyfriend, supported me and we got married shortly after graduating. We were living happily with our 8-year-old daughter, Hannah. My in-laws consisted of my mother-in-law and brother-in-law. My father-in-law had passed away from a sudden heart attack a year ago, surprising everyone in the family. My in-laws were affluent and ran a business, so we were never in a financial bind. My father-in-law had intended for his kind and considerate younger brother, who had business acumen, to take over as CEO. However, he passed away suddenly before this could happen. Ultimately, the eldest son, my brother-in-law, took over. Father wanted me to take over, but I couldn't possibly do that over my older brother. I'll support him, my husband had said. He respected his brother deeply and had no objection to giving up the position of CEO. My brother-in-law was very kind to me and often spoke to me in a friendly manner. However, I didn't have much interaction with my mother-in-law, whom I found somewhat difficult. When I just got married, my mother-in-law was very kind to me and would cook with me, saying, "I don't have a daughter, so I love spending time with you like this." However, she suddenly turned cold after my father-in-law passed away. She turned cold to both me and my husband and even avoided making any eye contact with us. I was perplexed, even towards Hannah, who used to dote on her as her first grandchild. She would glare and shut her down even when Hannah approached her, calling grandma. "She used to be such a sweet person before," said my upset husband. I felt very sorry for him. "Something's off about Mom. She's glaring at me as if I'm her enemy. Does she think we're after her assets? Or could she be ill or something?" My husband wondered. He had been thinking deeply about his mother's change in behavior but couldn't come up with any reason. In fact, we first noticed her change during my father-in-law's one-week memorial service when we were staying at her house. Exhausted from the memorial service, we slept soundly, but when we woke up in the morning, we noticed that the bag with our change of clothes we had left in the room was missing. "Could it be a burglar?" I asked. "No, it's strange that only our bag is missing. Let's look for it," my husband replied. While we were searching, we saw smoke rising from the backyard through the window. In disbelief, we went to check and found our belongings being burned. There was my mother-in-law. "Mom, you didn't do this, did you?" "Mother-in-law, please answer us." My mother-in-law said nothing. Her eyes were wide open, her lips pale white, and her hands were shaking. She seemed scared. "Mom, why did you do this? What is it about us that you don't like?" John asked, confused by her silence. He leaned closer to her and spoke gently. "You're not worried about us going after your assets, are you?" "I'm not after your assets. You can rest easy. We care about you, mother-in-law." Despite her earnest appeals, she coldly declared, "Get out of here, both of you, and don't come back." Baffled, we hurriedly left her house and have since become estranged, barely visiting for the past year. As much as it pained us, we felt like we couldn't reach mother-in-law, who clearly despised us. Then, one day, we received a message from my brother-in-law about the first anniversary memorial service for my father-in-law. All the relatives were gathering, so we decided to go, but my mother-in-law remained as cold as ever. Seeing this seemed to make John think more frequently. "What's the matter, John? Are you worried about mother-in-law?" I asked. "Huh? Oh, it's nothing. If there's anything I can do for you, just tell me," I said. "Don't worry about it, Bella. You don't need to worry about anything," he replied, gently stroking my cheek. His kind smile brought me great relief and soothed my feelings. About a month passed after that. "Well, I'm off," he said as he left for his business trip, cheerfully greeting me and our daughter Hannah, as usual. But he quickly returned, saying, "I forgot to give you this," and handed me a cute little charm. "This will surely protect you," he said with his gentle smile. I thought to myself how truly grateful I was to be married to him. However, a shocking event occurred the very next day. John had taken his own life. His car was found parked on a mountain road near my parents' house in Colorado. Inside the car, he was frothing at the mouth, taking his last breaths. Although he had told me he was on a business trip, his company said there were no trips scheduled that day. Moreover, I was told that just before his death, he had called my brother-in-law and whispered, "I can't go on living. It has become too painful. I'm sorry." I tried to stop him, but it turned out like this. My brother-in-law repeatedly apologized to me. According to the police, traces of a poisonous plant were found in his stomach. They said that this plant grows naturally in the mountains and can be easily obtained with a little knowledge. In the end, Given my brother-in-law's testimony, it was concluded that John had likely consumed it to end his own life. I bitterly blamed myself for not noticing his pain and having no clue why this happened. In front of my husband's body, I was about to collapse, but my brother-in-law supported me. Stay strong, Bella. This is hard for me too. I wish I had been more understanding of John's feelings. Why? Why did this happen? I cried, holding on to Hannah, who was also crying. But my mother-in-law was glaring at us with a pale face, showing no tears. While I was overwhelmed with grief, my brother-in-law and colleagues from the company proceeded with the funeral arrangements. Please wake up, I whispered on the day of the funeral. My husband John lay peacefully in the casket with his usual gentle expression. It seemed as if he would wake up any moment if I called out to him. As I clung to my husband, tears streamed down my cheeks. Then I noticed it. A single photo was placed on John's chest. Who could have placed this photo here? Curious, I picked up the photo to find that the part of the family photo showing John's face had been slashed mercilessly with a cutter. On the back of the photo was the phrase, "Run away now, S." What does this mean? Who could this message be directed to? As shivers ran down my spine, I turned around and locked eyes with my mother-in-law, who was glaring at me with icy eyes. Could it be her? When I stared back, she hurriedly averted her gaze. At that moment, I felt my mother-in-law knew something. So I discreetly slipped the photo into the pocket of my mourning dress without anyone noticing. After the funeral, once things had calmed down a bit, I started to think again about the photo. I still didn't know who had put the photo in the casket. I thought this S in the message might be someone's initial. The only person I could think of with a name starting with S was Scarlett, my mother-in-law. I always found it hard to believe that John would take his own life and leave me and our daughter Hannah behind. I hoped to find any reason, however small. That's why I decided to bravely visit my mother-in-law. When I arrived at her house, she greeted me with the same cold expression. Unfortunately, my brother-in-law was at work and wasn't home, so it was just the two of us. "What brings you here all of a sudden?" she asked. "Well, I was hoping to find out more about why John passed away. I thought there might be some clue here at his childhood home," I replied, lying on the spot because I didn't have the courage to confront her directly. As I looked for a topic of conversation, I glanced at the large bookshelf that covered one wall of the living room. The bookshelf, a product of the book-loving family, was filled with novels, encyclopedias, and dictionaries. There were also a few books that John had read during his student days. I couldn't help but pick up a few out of nostalgia. Each book had a stamp at the end of every page to indicate who it belonged to. Next to John's initial J was a small cuddling cat. That was so like him, and a smile escaped my lips. However, I could feel the cold stare of my mother-in-law on my back as I continued to flip through the books. Suddenly, I noticed a book that still had a cover on it. Picking it up, I saw it was a book on poisonous plants. There were several post-it notes in it, and when I opened one, it was about the poisonous plant that my husband had used. At the last page of the book, there was also a stamp of ownership. "Mother-in-law, what is the meaning of this?" I asked. She burst into tears. "I am the one to blame. Forgive me." The truth, she confessed, was shocking. "Please tell the police," I said. "Yes, I understand," she replied, and so I reported it to the police. Just then, my brother-in-law returned home, unaware of the situation. Noticing the sorrowful look on my mother-in-law's face, he asked with a worried expression, "What happened? Even Bella's here. Did something happen?" "I just wanted to discuss my husband with my mother-in-law," I said. "I see. Losing him must have been hard for you. Are you feeling a little better now, Bella?" he asked. As I mumbled and looked down, unable to tell him the truth, he began to speak something unexpected. "I know it's not the right time to say this, but I've always had feelings for you, Bella. I also think Hannah is adorable. Would you consider remarrying me?" he asked. I was surprised by his sudden revelation. I never expected my brother-in-law to have such feelings for me. "Thank you, brother-in-law, but I can't think about such a thing right now." "Yeah, I understand," he replied, scratching his head shyly. I handed him the photograph. When he saw the photo of my husband's face slashed and the words "Run away now" on the back, he turned pale and gasped. "This was found inside my husband's coffin. Who could do such a thing? It seems like someone at the funeral might know who harmed my husband," I said. "Hold on a minute. John took his own life, so there's no culprit," he said, bewildered, his eyes darting restlessly. But in my dreams, my husband screams, "I've been duped by that guy. I hate him," I said. His eyes widened at my words, staring at me with a shocked expression. "Also, I found this in the bookshelf in the living room," I continued, showing him the book about poisonous plants. I pointed to the owner's bookplate, which read my brother-in-law's name, Ken. "What are you trying to say? Are you implying that I murdered my brother?" he asked. I didn't answer his question and instead continued my story. My mother-in-law, who had been silent and looking down beside me, was holding her breath and watching how things were unfolding. "And take a look at this," I said, pulling out the little charm my husband had given me. Inside, there was a letter. It read, "My brother killed our father with a poisonous plant." I had been clutching the charm throughout John's funeral and realized there was something inside it only later. "This isn't valid evidence," my brother-in-law scoffed. "Then what about this?" I pulled out my phone and played a video. It showed a conversation between my husband and my brother-in-law. In the video, my brother-in-law admitted that he took their father's life on purpose. He even said, "I'm not coming after your family. I will turn myself in to the police." My husband had secretly set up a camera in their parents' house, as mentioned in the letter he left for me. "You confessed your crime to my husband, then reassured him you'd turn yourself in, only to take his life using the same poisonous plant, didn't you? John trusted you until the very end. Why did you do such a thing?" I pressed him. My brother-in-law's expression shifted from gentle to terrifying as he glared at me, clicking his tongue in frustration. At that moment, my mother-in-law burst into tears, sobbing out loud. Why? Why such a cruel thing? She had just confessed everything to me. The brothers had been very close during their childhood, but over time, my brother-in-law grew envious of his talented younger brother and started messing with him through petty pranks like hiding and damaging his possessions. Aware of this, my in-laws disciplined my brother-in-law strictly, but John never blamed him and continued to admire him. This disheartened my mother-in-law. After my father-in-law passed away, my mother-in-law found a book about poisonous plants while cleaning the bookshelf. Although my husband was diagnosed with a heart attack, he had never been warned of any heart issues in his previous medical checkups. She suspected something wasn't right and noticed a bookmark in the book detailing symptoms similar to those my husband had before he passed away. She also found a photo of John's face slashed with a box cutter hidden within the pages of the book. Without concrete evidence and knowing my brother-in-law wouldn't admit to anything, my mother-in-law chose not to confront him. During my father-in-law's memorial service, she was deeply shaken to find my brother-in-law burning our bags to keep us away from the family home. She explained this in a pained voice, her face lined with worry. Even though we stopped visiting their home, my mother-in-law noticed my brother-in-law becoming more and more grim, murmuring to himself, "I have to do something about John." She tried to warn me about it at my husband's first memorial by passing the message to run away now, using the photo. She also whispered to John that Ken might have killed their father, but it backfired. Had my husband not known, he probably wouldn't have gone to meet my brother-in-law, and things wouldn't have turned out this way. My mother-in-law regretted and blamed herself for everything. I couldn't respond to her words. "It's all because our father decided not to let me take over the company. But John always said he could have become president by pushing you aside. Like I care. Both your father and John loved you. You didn't have to go this far. What's the point now? The parents who only doted on my younger brother are to blame, and so is the good boy," he sneered. As I stood there, heartbroken and dismayed, the weight of the family's hidden resentments and tragedies pressed down on me. "It's all your fault, John," my brother-in-law spat, his defiant expression sending chills down my spine. "How dare you take away my dear husband? I will never forgive you." "Shut up. If you hadn't meddled, I might have even made you my wife," he retorted. Suddenly, my enraged brother-in-law pulled out a knife he had been hiding and started coming at me. I cried out for help and tried to escape, but he was quick and soon stood right in front of me. Cornered and facing a raised knife, I instinctively closed my eyes. At that moment, a loud thud hit. Someone had jumped in to protect me. It was my mother-in-law. "Mother-in-law, are you okay?" I asked, seeing blood seeping from her arm. "We're missing?" She held her wounded arm. "Ken, please stop doing these awful things. Please turn yourself in." "Shut up. Both of you just have to disappear," he shouted. "You became the CEO you always wanted to be. Why would you go this far?" I asked, desperate for answers. "I need money," he snarled. Having taken over the company without any managerial talent, my brother-in-law had accrued substantial debt within a year. He was now in desperate need of money and had even taken out a high-value life insurance policy on my husband. It's funny. John believed me easily when I said I was going to turn myself in. He laughed menacingly. I felt intense revulsion at his demeanor. But John still wanted to save you. Why didn't you understand that? It's all my parents' fault for favoring John over me, he screamed. At that moment, the police who had been called earlier arrived. My brother-in-law struggled until the end, pleading, I did nothing wrong. Forgive me. Overlook this. You deserve to go to hell. I snapped. My brother-in-law gasped, finally calming down as he was taken away by the police. Fortunately, my mother-in-law's injury was not serious. In the end, my brother-in-law showed no signs of remorse and will likely remain behind bars. I am now living with my mother-in-law at her place. She has returned to her old self and is loving towards my daughter Hannah. We were happily living together, and the letter in the charm had more to it. Bella, you are my treasure. I love you always. Embracing my husband's feelings, I have decided to keep living, cherishing the love we shared. My name is Amanda, and I'm 28 years old. I've been married for 2 years to my husband, Tom. We met in university, and now he works in a corporate job. After graduating, I decided not to get a traditional job. Instead, I make a living by investing in stocks and trading foreign currencies. Even though I do well with this, my parents often tell me to get a real job. Tom understands my lifestyle the best and always supports me. We've been together since our university days, and he has always been the one I can share my true feelings with, especially because he isn't great at socializing either. I have parents and a younger sister, but they don't really get me and think I'm the odd one out. Because of this, we don't see each other as often as we used to. Tom's family includes his parents and his older brother, Jeff. When we visited Tom's family to announce our marriage, they asked many questions about my job. Tom always stood up for me, saying, Amanda is doing what she loves, and that's all that matters. Jeff, in particular, kept asking about my job. Annoyed, I told him I was a part-timer. Jeff arrogantly laughed and said, You should have just said that. Lots of college graduates can't find stable jobs these days. Jeff's attitude was irritating, but I didn't let it bother me because I wasn't marrying him. Even though Tom kept apologizing, having him by my side was what mattered most to me. Jeff, who constantly belittles me, is an associate professor at a university. I feel sorry for his students. Jeff is now getting married, and Tom and I have been invited to the wedding. The bride is the daughter of the university president where Jeff works. There were many guests invited to the wedding. Marrying the president's daughter certainly secures Jeff's future. When Jeff saw me at the wedding, he started mocking me again. It's embarrassing to have a part-timer as a sister-in-law, he said. I didn't understand what he meant until I checked the wedding directory and saw that my name was the only one left blank. Tom was about to confront Jeff, but I told him not to worry about it because I didn't care about such things. I don't mind, so don't start a fight over it, I said. Jeff smirked and said, That's right, a part-timer should keep a low profile. Don't ruin this celebration. He even told us not to serve drinks to the guests because it would be troublesome if they asked about my job. Just sit quietly, he said triumphantly, leaving us behind. Tom was still furious. I'm sorry my brother has been incredibly rude. Me husband Tom apologized with near tears in his eyes, feeling guilty. I unexpectedly found myself apologizing too. I should be the one saying sorry. I didn't mean for you to be upset because of me, I said. Seeing me apologize, Tom finally managed to smile. At the wedding that day, neither of us felt like celebrating Jeff and his wife. As Jeff had suggested, we decided to simply enjoy the delicious food. The food was extravagant, just as you'd expect from the wedding of the university president's daughter, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. The gifts were heavy, raising our expectations of something luxurious. But when we opened the box at home, we were stunned. Inside was a bowl with a portrait of Jeff and his wife. Even Tom, as the younger brother, was exasperated. He sighed and said, This is the last thing we need. I don't want to see my brother's face, but we can't just throw it away, and it's not something we can use. But I thought of a way to use it immediately. It's the perfect size and depth for a cat's dish. Can we use it for the cat's food? Would that be disrespectful to your brother? Tom laughed and replied, It's perfect for the cat's food. The idea of my brother and his wife being licked by the cat every day is refreshing. With Tom's approval, the gift bowl became our cat's dish from then on. A month later, I had to visit the university where Jeff worked. I hated the idea of running into Jeff, but I figured I'd be safe since the campus was large and I had to visit a different department. However, I bumped into Jeff right away. Seeing me, Jeff looked surprised. I quickly averted my eyes and pretended not to see him, but Jeff approached me and started shouting, "Why the hell are you here? I'm calling the police for trespassing." Jeff's loud voice drew a crowd of students. In front of them, he began mocking me. "What's a deadbeat like you doing here? Did you come to eat cheap lunch at the cafeteria?" Being shy, I fell silent, which seemed to amuse Jeff even more. He started telling the surrounding students, "This woman is a part-timer even after graduating from college. If you don't study hard, you'll end up like this." I could see the students giggling, and I felt like crying. Then a voice interrupted Jeff's rant from behind. Turning towards the voice, I saw a familiar professor and felt relieved. "What on earth is happening?" "She's my invited guest," the professor said. Jeff was momentarily taken aback but quickly retorted, "Isn't there some kind of mistake? This girl is just a part-timer." Another professor who arrived late and knew me corrected Jeff. "She is not a part-timer. She's a research collaborator in the economics department." Regardless of what the other professor said, Jeff seemed unconvinced. Ever since marrying the president's daughter, he's been condescending even to the older professors. The professor who invited me, thinking it was pointless to argue with Jeff, took my hand and led me away from the scene. As I left, the students also dispersed, but Jeff didn't seem amused. He followed me, barging into the room I had been led into. Despite the presence of many senior professors in the room, Jeff continued to ridicule me. "What's this about? She's a part-timer, right? Dumb walking girl, don't wander around the university." Upon hearing his offensive words, the senior professors in the room began to shudder. In a panic, one of the senior professors ushered Jeff out of the room, but I could hear him whispering to Tom, "Your career is over, Jeff." Jeff didn't seem to care about what was said. After all, with the president in his corner, he had no fear. But at some point, the president had entered the room I was in. The president immediately apologized to me. "I am deeply sorry our associate professor has spoken out of line. Allow me to apologize on his behalf," the president said. The other professors also apologized to me. I responded that I didn't mind, though in reality, I was filled with rage, almost to my breaking point. However, I displayed mature composure. I had not planned to meet with the president that day, but he seemed to have come unexpectedly. I was conducting research with the professors of the economics department at this university on financial engineering. When I say research, I mean verifying whether or not the theory I use in my stock and forex investment operations is correct. Since my university days, I've been conducting financial transactions based on my unique theory. I've been exchanging opinions with a professor I met on social media. As the professor noticed my good investment performance, he began to verify it with me, and I started to be invited to the university as a research collaborator. The university had repeatedly suggested I work as a lecturer, but as I'm not comfortable speaking in front of others, the idea was impossible for me. Since participating in the research also benefits me, I visit the university a few times a month to confirm the results. I didn't realize it was the same university where Jeff works until he got married. When I looked at the guest list at the wedding and recognized the name, it turned out that the president of this university was the bride's father. Although there were other university-related guests, it seemed that no one noticed me. My name had been removed from the list, and I had been told not to serve drinks, so I never left my seat. With a wedding of such scale, no one was expected to notice someone as unremarkable as me. The reason the president and professors were in a panic is because I'm a major donor to this university. Ever since I started conducting research with the university, my investment performance has improved significantly, and I have been donating a substantial amount of money each year. In addition, the theories I'm researching are also being provided to hedge funds and investors abroad, which seems to be bringing in a considerable amount of donations as well. As a private university, donations and sponsorship funds are crucial to the institution, which is earning a considerable amount of money from the research I am involved in. Upsetting me would be a serious problem. If I got angry because of my brother-in-law Jeff's rude remarks, withdrew from the research, and even ceased donations, it would greatly affect the university's operations. That day, the situation no longer allowed for discussing investment theory. The president and the other professors just kept apologizing to me, so nothing was settled. As I was leaving, I spoke to the president. Your associate professor earlier is my brother-in-law, Jeff. Did you know that? At these words, the president and the professors were surprised. It was clear no one had noticed it before. I also tried to share my honest feelings. Jeff always makes fun of me, but I think his attitude is questionable as an educator. I must have been pretty angry at that time. In front of about 10 people, including the president, I spoke quite passionately, something I couldn't normally do due to nerves. Looking back on it, I feel embarrassed, but I was impressed with myself for doing something unexpected when my anger built up too much. After I left, it seems my brother-in-law Jeff's attitude became an issue within the university. He had been criticized for his arrogant behavior towards his superiors even after marrying the president's daughter, and his reputation among students was quite bad. The fact that he became an associate professor in the first place seemed to be a special case because he was dating the president's daughter, and criticism was directed at the president as well. The president had been defending his son-in-law, Jeff, for the sake of his beloved daughter, but he was in trouble if his position as president was taken away, as he also received criticism. Jeff, not thinking that the president, his biggest backer, was criticizing him too, became more and more arrogant. Jeff, who didn't know about this, made fun of me as usual when I showed up at the university again. Back again. Just because you're friendly with the economics professors doesn't mean you can get cocky, Jeff sneered. Hearing such rude words from an associate professor made me think this university was going downhill. The president had allowed such a man to act arrogantly without scolding him. I started to consider stopping the joint research with this university. I didn't like being made fun of every time I came to the university. It felt like a waste of time. Lost in thought, I barely registered Jeff's rant until he shouted, "Hey, are you even listening? Are you so stupid you can't even listen to other people's stories?" Suddenly, a louder voice resonated. "Jeff, you are the fool." The president had appeared, and even my overbearing brother-in-law became still as a statue. Seeing him like that, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Jeff glared at me but was quickly silenced by the president's harsh words. "After today, you're no longer part of this university. Pack up and get out immediately." Jeff looked blankly at the president, then casually said, "Father-in-law, what's going on? Are you trying to surprise me?" The president, his face red with rage, yelled again, "You have no right to call me your father-in-law. I want you to divorce my daughter as well." Just then, a young woman and a man in a suit appeared. I recognized the woman as Jeff's wife. She spoke sternly. "I suspected you were acting strange, so I had a lawyer investigate and they managed to get these photos." The man in the suit pulled out several photos showing Jeff arm in arm with a woman I didn't recognize. Jeff's wife continued, "That's divorce, just as Dad said. After all, you were just using him, weren't you? You never loved me." Jeff began to apologize. "I won't cheat on you again. Please forgive me." Watching Jeff panic was quite enjoyable. Jeff turned his frustration on me. "What are you looking at? You're just a part-timer. It's none of your business. Get out of here." The president spoke on my behalf. "You always yell part-timer at Amanda, but she's a skilled investor. She's doing joint research with her economics department and gives generous donations. She's much more valuable than you will ever be." Finally, Jeff seemed to believe the president's words and reluctantly apologized to me. The president must have orchestrated this whole event to make Jeff apologize to me. Seeing Jeff apologize while looking down in despair felt quite refreshing. The lawyer explained the demand for property division as I bid farewell to the president and left. When I got home, I told Tom about Jeff's apology and affair. Tom, aware of my distaste for Jeff, was genuinely happy. "Damn, I wish I could have seen him in that state," he said. "Why didn't you take a picture?" We burst out laughing. I had another piece of good news to share with Tom. Guess what? It seems I'm pregnant. Hearing this, Tom was ecstatic. I had suspected as much after feeling unwell and confirmed it at the OB/GYN on my way home from the university. I felt a bit guilty for the president, Bob, who had orchestrated Jeff's apology. I decided to put my cooperation with the university on hold. Bob seemed disappointed but said he'd wait until I'd finished with child rearing. Later, I casually asked Bob about Jeff. He informed me that Jeff, who had officially divorced, was now unemployed and struggling to find a new job. Jeff's arrogance was well known, and no offers were coming in. Ultimately, Jeff's arrogance had boomeranged back on him. Suddenly, I realized that the photos of the cheap gifts we used as cat dishes had disappeared. Whether it was because we had used the cheap gifts or because they had divorced, the couple's photos had vanished as well.